Committee Room 30. Sound. 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 Committee Room 30. Signed. 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 Committee Room 30. Committee Room 30. Signed. 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 Committee Room 30. Committee Room 30. Signed. 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 Committee Room 30. Committee Room 30. Sound. 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 Committee Room 30. Sound.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, good morning and welcome to today's meeting for the Committee for the Economy. As always, the meeting will be broadcast throughout public Parliament buildings. I'll start by taking apologies. At this stage, I've received none.
I think he'll be here.
Kieran will be here, no problem at all. Is there any interests members wish to declare at this stage? No. Okay, chairperson's business, just a couple of members. So the committee previous.
I think Padraig wants to.
Oh, sorry, Padraig. Apologies, sir.
You're all right, Chair. Chair, was just to declare an interest as a former participant in the Go Succeed programme with Invest.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Padraig, and that will be noted. The committee previously wrote to the department seeking further information on its bids under the Local Growth Mission Fund. This appears to be the same as the Local Growth Fund. The committee wrote last week in support of North City Business Centre's bid. DFE appears to be a little confused in respect of these SPF replacement funds. Is the committee content to contact the Department for Finance in respect of Growth Mission Fund / Local Growth Fund seeking clarity? Members content?
Yeah.
Okay. Draft minutes, members, are at page 7. Members content that they're a true and accurate reflection of our deliberations? Agreed. Yeah. Matters arising, any member wish to raise an item? Jonathan?
Sure, just thank the committee for their kind letter following the birth of my daughter. Much appreciated.
Thank you. And item 6 then is Invest Northern Ireland. I'm delighted, members, to welcome Kieran Donoghue, Chief Executive of Invest Northern Ireland, Anne Beggs, Chief Commercial Officer, Kathryn Hill, Chief Operating Officer, and Mark Lee, who's the Acting Head of Economic Policy at the Department. Colleagues, you're very welcome to committee today. Can I start by thanking you for your service to the Northern Ireland economy? Congratulate you all on your recent appointments, Mark, you included. Delighted to have you back, and with that I'm happy to hand over to you, Kieran, to make an opening statement.
Okay, good morning, Chair and members. Thank you for inviting myself and my colleagues to attend the committee this morning. I've been asked to address 3 specific items. Firstly, Invest NI's annual report and performance in the first year of our new strategy entitled Our Future in Focus. Secondly, the recent review of investments requested by the Minister for the Economy, which was published on October 13th. And finally, progress in implementing the recommendations of the Lyons Review. I'm pleased to be joined by 2 of the recently appointed new members of our reshaped Executive Committee and our colleague Mark Lee from the Department for the Economy. Anne Beggs on my left became our Chief Commercial Officer on May 1st and now leads our Clients and Global Markets Group. Anne's team manages our relationship with existing clients, both local and international, and will work to ensure that these companies are reinvesting in Northern Ireland while simultaneously seeking to attract new inward investment and connect our clients with commercial opportunities in external markets. On my right, Kathryn Hill joined as Chief Operating Officer on May 19th and brings a wealth of experience from her previous role as Director of Active Communities at the Department for Communities. Kathryn now oversees our Corporate Services Group, which includes all the functions necessary for the efficient and effective operation of the agency, including finance and compliance, HR, comms and marketing, etc. We are also preparing to welcome Alison Curry as our Chief Development Officer. Alison will start on January 5th and joins us from Intertrade Ireland, where she's currently Director of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. She will lead our regional development agenda, regional business group, city and growth deals, land and property, and a brand new client solutions group. The executive team is completed by two colleagues who aren't present here today, Paula Logue, our Director of People and Culture, and Peter Harbinson, Director of Communications and Marketing. With this strengthened and restructured team in place, we are well positioned to deliver our current strategy and to commence the next phase of restructuring of Invest&I and to support the achievement of the Minister's economic vision. That brings me to the first of the key agenda items requested by the committee. So in October of this year, we laid our annual report before the Assembly, and it confirms that Invest&I came in on budget and has received a very satisfactory audit report. The Controller and Auditor General for Northern Ireland reviewed our financial statements and concluded with an unqualified audit opinion without modification and with 0 priority 1 recommendations in respect of regularity and the internal control environment. I would like to thank Kathryn and Invest&I's finance team for delivering this outcome. We are now just past the midpoint of our new 3-year strategy. As members will be aware, our strategy is centred around supporting delivery of the Minister and the Assembly's priorities: increased productivity, good jobs, regional balance and a low carbon economy. We released a very strong set of first-year results against our business strategy. So just by way of example, we set a target in the first year of our strategy to win a minimum of 1,500 investments, and we delivered north of 2,000 investments. We set a target to win a minimum of 60% of all of our investments outside the Belfast metropolitan area, and we achieved 59%, so a slight undershoot there. We set a total investment target in terms of value of £525 million and delivered £634 million. We set a research, development and innovation target in terms of spend by our clients and research, development and innovation of £160 million and delivered £245 million. We set a jobs approved target of 3,000 and delivered 3,020. We set a new inward investment target in terms of individual projects and delivered 19. These results demonstrate an organisation that is fully mobilised and engaged around delivery of the organisation's strategy and of converting investment opportunities. On our regional balance priority, we have now hired 4 of 5 new heads of regional business, and our incoming CDO, Alison Curry, will chair the hiring board for the 5th and final post early next year. We gave a commitment to increase headcount in our regional office network by approximately 20 roles, and we have hired 15 to date, and hiring is continuing. I've also recently held a series of stakeholder engagements across all of our regional network. These regular discussions with stakeholders, particularly in each of the regional offices, are very important because they illustrate, I believe, a more open, engaged and collaborative Invest&I. We are open to and have embraced a partnership approach to the implementation of our strategy, as evidenced by our work with the universities, colleges, local councils, AMIC, AICC and many others, and we do this on the basis of shared goals, mutual respect and reciprocity. Whilst we do not formally report at mid-year, I can assure the committee that we are on a very good trajectory to deliver against most of our Year 2 targets based on our work in progress and delivery in the current year. In this context, the recent announcement by Bank of America for a major new investment for Belfast, Seagate's announcement of a major R&D project in the Northwest, EMY's announcement of a new investment in the Northwest, plus Japanese corporate NTT's acquisition of Alchemy in the Northwest. These are all very, very encouraging developments. This does not mean that we are in any way complacent. We need to continue to build our pipeline of work in progress for this year and beyond. So after 20 months of implementation of our new strategy, we remain ambitious and cautiously optimistic about the Northern Ireland economy. The source of the optimism, as ever, is the quality of the conversations that we are having with our client companies right across Northern Ireland. They remain ambitious, resilient, and willing to invest in the activities necessary for growth, whether that's leadership, capital equipment, R&D and innovation, their customer-supplier relationships, supply chain optimization, automation, AI, or market development. By focusing on external sales growth and leveraging our unique dual market access, Northern Ireland is outperforming all other regions in the United Kingdom in terms of sustained growth in goods and exports to the European Union. Our caution relates to infrastructure and budget constraints, cost competitiveness and skills availability here at home, and tariffs and geopolitical and general market uncertainty abroad. Therefore, we do need to remain alert to risks such as the potential for a stock market correction, an AI bubble, debt sustainability, changes in international tariffs or regulatory changes, shadow banking and recession risks, and how these individually and collectively could impact the real economy inhabited by our clients. Our job, as ever, will remain assisting our clients to see and capture the opportunities for investment and growth while addressing associated challenges. We have just completed a midterm review of our current strategy, and we are still content with the priorities and the progress made to date, and therefore we do not propose to make any fundamental changes to the current strategy. In addition, we are preparing a high-level roadmap and timeline for the development of a successor strategy, which we propose to have ready by the summer of 2027. I will now turn to the second agenda item very briefly, the Review of Investments report. Members will be aware that the Minister requested Invest&I to undertake a review of investments made since October 7th, 2023, to ensure that we had not financially supported projects that manufactured arms or their components for supply to Israel. That review confirmed that we had not supported any such projects and have a transparent and robust multi-stage appraisal and approval process in place. Invest&I's interventions are focused on developing companies' capabilities and competitiveness by supporting projects in areas such as R&D and innovation, skills and market development. I appreciate that members may have further questions on this, but you will be aware of ongoing legal proceedings on this matter, which respectfully may limit my ability to provide more detailed responses. Finally, in terms of the independent review, I'm pleased to report that as of today, 29 of 35 recommendations in that review have been successfully implemented. One further action will be completed by the end of the calendar year, leaving 5 outstanding actions as of January 2026. Of these remaining 5 actions, 3 are being led on by ourselves in Invest&I and 2 by colleagues in the department. This progress reflects significant organisational effort over the last 2 years. Delivery of the full suite of recommendations is scheduled to finish in 2027, in line with the Independent Action Plan. Therefore, I think it's fair to say to members that the majority of the recommendations of the Lions Review are now substantially complete. Finally, in my near 2 years as CEO of Invest&I, I have seen a remarkable shift in attitudes towards and engagement with the agency. I spend a lot of time, as you'll appreciate, meeting with our clients, with stakeholders and others in all parts of Northern Ireland and overseas. And the feedback I have received about Invest&I has been overwhelmingly positive. Clients and stakeholders see and feel a difference in Invest&I, which fills me with great optimism. This is not to say that there hasn't been occasional criticism as well, but in general, there has been a significant swing to the positive, an increased recognition and respect for what we are trying to do, which is to build a stronger enterprise economy right across Northern Ireland. I would like to end by thanking the Minister, this committee, our Chair and Board, colleagues at the Department for the Economy, and our clients for supporting our work over the last 2 years. And last but never least, I'm grateful as ever to all of the staff at Invest, without whose hard work, dedication and passion for public service we would not be successfully delivering on the strategy. I'm now happy to take any questions that members may have. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and thank you as always for your work and for your presentation to the committee. I just want to start, Kieran, if you're content with agenda item 2 that you spoke to. I know you can't go into huge detail in relation to the current legal action. In terms of the review of investments that you undertook, you used diplomatic language that you said that the Minister requested that you do a review. Was it requested or was it instructed?
My understanding is that it was a request. I didn't receive any instruction in the strict sense of that word to do the review of investments. It was a request conveyed to us by colleagues in the department.
And in terms of your overview of the conclusions that you came to, there was one that you didn't include in that. I know you were only briefly talking about it, but paragraph 3 of the foreword to your useful report, and that talks about the importance of the aerospace defence and security sector to the Northern Ireland economy.
Yes.
Just wondered if you could maybe detail some of that to the committee here today.
So the aerospace defence and security sector comprises 120 client companies. They employ 9,000 people across Northern Ireland. That sector has been responsible for aggregate turnover of north of 2 billion. The sector employs also about 500 apprentices. Some very high profile, both domestic and international companies work in the sector. We see it as an area of further opportunity for the Northern Ireland economy, and in the review of investments we included a number of paragraphs that drew the reader's attention to that, and we will remain committed to the development of the sector in line with current policies and regulations.
And do you see further opportunities in that sector? I had the privilege last week of visiting Collins Aerospace in South Down in Kilkeel. And they had informed us that in partnership with Thompson's Aerospace that Northern Ireland is now in a position where we're producing 1 and 2 of every airplane seat currently used in the entire world, which is obviously a massive story for Northern Ireland, and the part of that wider RTX sector, which is one of the biggest companies in the entire world. So I'm just saying, what further work do you think Invest Northern Ireland can do to ensure that that industry is supported and continues to grow?
So firstly, I do see further opportunity. It's a very broad church, that sector. So you have aerospace, both civilian and military. You have defence, both pure play defence and then defence related activities, and then you have space as well. We see opportunities right across that broad spectrum. I think the recent strategic defence review concluded by the government,
yes,
and the decision to develop a cybersecurity node in Northern Ireland is evidence of commitment to that sector by the UK government, and that's an opportunity for us to build upon. In terms of further developing that sector, I think preparing an up-to-date target list of the companies internationally who we would want to engage with to encourage them to invest in Northern Ireland from overseas, while continuing to talk to existing clients that are already here, to make sure that we're aligned in terms of their development plans and potential, is something that we're already doing.
I just want to see what in terms changed for Invest Northern Ireland, if anything. So I assume that this document was a pretty substantial piece of work,
yes,
that you undertook. So from receiving your instruction / request to carry this out, it concluded the importance of the sector to the Northern Ireland economy, but it also included that there was no issue or case to answer to. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then it went on to further state in the ministerial statement that was published that the department is developing a new ethical investment framework. Have you been given that new framework?
No, so the review of investments report was published, as you know, so it's there for everybody to read, and I think people have welcomed the conclusions in it broadly. The Minister made a statement in the Assembly to accompany the publication of the report, in which she referred...
Fortunately, she didn't. She issued a written ministerial statement.
Oh, was it a written ministerial?
Which wasn't subject to scrutiny. Yeah.
Okay, forgive me. So the Minister then made a statement, is my understanding, in which she said that she was instructing officials to begin work to develop an ethical investment framework. Our colleagues in the department are working on that ethical investment framework, and we look forward to seeing it and reading it in due course.
The second conclusion from the Minister's written ministerial statement was expects companies seeking support to confirm that they are not manufacturing arms or components for countries committing genocide. Have you any idea who will be the person who defines what genocide is or isn't?
So the department, my understanding is that the department now have to develop a policy to give effect to the Minister's statement to the Assembly. That policy will combine the ethical investment framework, and it will provide the necessary guidance to us so that we in Invest NI can then consider how best to operationalise the Minister's intentions. That policy and that ethical investment framework are work in progress.
And then will not engage with British government talks with Israel while it continues to illegally occupy and impose apartheid in Palestine. I assume Invest Northern Ireland would never have any role in UK government trade negotiations or discussions.
My understanding, Chair, is that trade is not a devolved responsibility, so UK government officials, as per normal, will pursue those trade talks, is my understanding. Invest NI is not directly involved in those.
16-page document, months of work to conclude that no case to answer to, and there has been no changes implemented or asked of Invest Northern Ireland at this stage, and you await a policy direction from the Minister in which she published to this Assembly 2 months ago that she would do, but we've received no update on that. Mark, are you responsible for trying to develop that policy?
Yes, so I'd maybe draw a distinction. There's the ethical investment framework that the Minister's talked about. Work's ongoing on that. We've had a few kind of conversations with some people with expertise in this area and think about how to take that forward. That will take a while for us to develop. There's then the second bullet point in her written ministerial statement where she talks about ensuring companies seeking grant support confirm they're not manufacturing arms or components for countries committing genocide. So again, there's probably a slightly shorter term piece there where we're discussing with Invest NI just how we operationalise that part.
Who will define genocide?
So I think we will, to be confirmed, the Minister will express a view on that off the back of some advice.
Will she decide who's committing genocide and who isn't?
I'd imagine we will draw on some international standards. So, for instance, if a UN committee has confirmed that genocide is being committed.
So the UN will be the ultimate arbiter of economic policy?
The Minister hasn't made a final decision, but obviously that is one option that's open.
It seems strange, Mark, that this statement was made 2 months ago and we've seen no progress on this. Some may conclude that this was a political move rather than an economic one. I just wanted to check, you were at the meeting on the 20th of October 2025 with the Special Advisor Ian Snood and Richard Rogers when this issue was discussed with the Minister, is that correct?
A meeting with the committee or a
place here at Parliament Buildings, which was a weekly update with the Permanent Secretary and the Minister.
Yes, yep.
So there's been a Freedom of Information request just released in relation to the contents of that meeting, most of which unfortunately blacked out. But the final point was discussions on the question may be asked in orals today. Minister stated that she did not require a briefing on the level of trade with Israel. Would you have been providing that briefing on the trade with Israel?
Yes, we've provided those details to the Minister. Previously, that would have been an advice that we provided to her, so she would have been familiar with those numbers.
Did you talk to the committee today just about Northern Ireland's trade with Israel currently?
Yes, I might just need to find the numbers to make sure I don't misspeak on them. So I think, off the top of my head, I think there's around 45 million of exports, is it? I think they're either our...
Listen, if you don't have the detail there, that's fine. You can come back to the committee. Were you involved in the drafting of the ministerial statement that was published in relation to the review of investments?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. I just had a few questions about that, if possible. So, in the opening paragraph concludes with, "We have a responsibility to end the illegal occupation of Palestine." Could you outline to the committee what work the Minister is currently undertaking that has moved along that aim?
So I think the Minister was making a broad statement there around our requirements under international law. And again, that's set in the context for what she said in terms of developing an ethical investment framework and the position on trade talks and getting the assurance that we need around grant support to companies.
Okay. And then she concludes with, "The current ceasefire must become permanent and lead to Palestinian statehood." What's the Minister's view in terms of the borders of Palestine as defined in her statement?
You need to ask the Minister that.
Did you not help draft the statement?
I did help draft the statement, yes, yeah.
Did you write that line?
No.
Who wrote that line?
I don't know. What I would say is that obviously the final version of that is signed off by the Minister, so It reflects her views and her decision.
No problem. That's fine. Kieran, I just wanted to touch base then in relation to some of the really good success stories that have come recently, and you touched on some of those both in the Northwest and in Bank of America. I just want to set out, firstly, as chair of this committee and as economic spokesperson for the party, because the minister hasn't, that I warmly welcome the investment by Bank of America, and can I thank you all for your hard work and dedication in securing that, not just for Belfast but for Northern Ireland PLC. I read with interest, Kieran, an article in the Irish Times last night from the chief executive of Manufacturing Northern Ireland. You'll recall, Kieran, I asked you the last time you were here to outline some of the foreign direct investment that had been secured as a result of dual market access. At that stage, it was your view, though, you can correct me if I'm misquoting you, that you hadn't been able to identify any major international investment as a result of that. Manufacturing NI in the Irish Times interview yesterday stated that he accepts that few foreign companies have set up here in Northern Ireland since the Windsor framework to try and exploit dual market access. Have you any update on the committee in terms of additional FDI that's been secured? Obviously, Bank of America and others that you have outlined are under the services sector, which aren't constrained by the parameters of the Windsor framework and the protocol on Ireland, Northern Ireland. Is there any update for the committee in relation to those?
And would you like to provide the committee with an update on that?
I can, yes. I guess just in terms of the FDI perspective specifically, I think it's probably been discussed at committee before that FDI decision making is genuinely made on the basis of a range of different factors. So it is either not appropriate or not possible to appropriate foreign direct investment exclusively to dual market access, and that's a challenge that I think we have in terms of our investments. I'm certainly seeing, and we see across kind of the senior executive team, proposals being brought forward from existing manufacturers, and certainly the advantage of dual market access is being considered a factor and certainly in expansion plans that we're seeing coming through. But net new FDI exclusively on the back of dual market access is quite difficult to identify, given the decision-making process that investors go through.
Understand difficult, maybe 3 examples for the committee?
We have some in the pipeline actually, which are probably at an early stage.
In relation to the Windsor framework has now been in place for over 4 years, and I don't expect you to give me 10, 20, 30 examples of FDI that's been secured as a result of open quotation marks, dual market access, close quotation marks, but maybe if you could just give us 3.
We have a number in the pipeline that
Sure.
Unfortunately I can't probably reveal in terms of kind of
I understand it,
sensitivity.
and I don't want you to go into commercial sensitivity, but if you just give me 3 examples of FDI companies that in the past 4 years have set up as a result of dual market access here in Northern Ireland, and how many jobs that's created.
We couldn't attribute dual market access exclusively to the establishment of any FDI in the past 4 years.
Say that again, sir?
We couldn't attribute any manufacturing FDI in the past 4 years exclusively to the factor of dual market access, because there are a range
3.
of.
What about even just one? One example? No.
No, I think it would be probably more on the expansion side.
Okay, so 0 examples of that, and I just think that's important to state. We had the Chief Executive of Manufacturing Northern Ireland, who in the Irish Times yesterday has said that. Kieran, as Chief Executive of Invest NI, said this 2 years ago. The Minister for the Economy, Conor Murphy, was unable to give us an example, and you're not able to give us an example at this stage. Now I understand that totally, and thank you for that. Padraig.
Okay, so just on the position that you've set out there, Chair, I do want to clarify the position on ethical procurement. And it's not just the UN who've said that. I'll give you a list actually of some of the organisations. So we have the UN Independent Commission of Inquiry. We also have the International Court of Justice. We have the UN General Assembly, UN Special Rapporteur, panel of independent UN experts, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, International Association of Genocide Scholars, Centre for Constitutional Rights, Médecins Sans Frontières, and numerous other humanitarian organisations. So just for anybody who's confused on this position, the position has been set out very clearly that the ethical procurement strategy has been put in place to prevent genocide. That has been the overall objective. So that is listening to these. It is not a political issue. It is a humanitarian issue. It is upholding international law. There should be absolutely no ambiguity around that position. So that's all I'm going to say on this today. I don't think we should make a political issue out of it. It is one of international law, upholding international law, and of human rights. So to move back to the main presentation here,
Before you do,
I have
and I'm not going
right,
to,
sorry, Chair.
you can.
No, sorry, Chair.
So I'm
Sorry,
the chair.
Chair.
No,
You-
Patrick, I'm the
yeah,
chair of this committee, so I get to speak, and then I will bring you back in. I'm not going to interrupt your questions, but you said you wanted an issue of ambiguity, so you have stated a fact that's incorrect. You've said an ethical framework has been put in place. Both the Invest Northern Ireland and your minister's advisor here has stated that it has not been put in place at this stage. It's being developed. So if we're going to avoid ambiguity, we need to be factual in what we say. So continue
I
your
didn't interrupt
questions.
you. Please don't interrupt me. I'm going to ask my questions.
Well, please get on with it.
Sorry?
Please get on with asking your questions then, Patrick. There's others that want to ask questions.
An appropriate way to speak to a member of this committee, Chair, and I think you should withdraw that remark.
Patrick, if you want to ask questions, go ahead. You cannot state inaccurate remarks at this committee, which you started off your remarks with. I will always, as chair of this committee, facilitate debate and discussion, but what I will not allow is things to be read into the record of this committee which are factually incorrect. You stated that the Minister has put in place an ethical framework. I'm not sure if you listened to what both Invest Northern Ireland and Mr Lee said. They've clearly stated that is not in place at this stage. So if you have questions to ask, I will facilitate, as I always do, for you to ask your questions.
Yeah, well, Chair, I would appreciate if you spoke to members of this committee with more respect than you've just done. I'll now ask my questions.
Please, go ahead.
So, thank you to Invest for coming on today. Thank you for your presentation. I think the figures speak very clearly to the fact that there has been consistent and ongoing work done to enhance the economy across the north. There are two questions which I want to raise today. One of them is around your regional balance strategy, and it's to get an update first and foremost on what you're doing in terms of the office in Derry. I know there's been really good work there in terms of strengthening our approach in the Northwest, Invest's capacity in the Northwest, and I just want to get an update on exactly what's happening there and the good work that you've been doing. How's that being built upon?
Okay, so thank you, member. So as the committee will be aware, Invest Northern Ireland has had an office in the Northwest in Derry, Londonderry at Timber Quay for more than 20 years now. That property has now been purchased by the University of Ulster, and they're going to use it for educational purposes. And for that and for other reasons, we believe that that location is no longer suitable for our needs as Northern Ireland's Economic Development Agency. So for quite some time now, we've been looking at alternative property options in the Northwest. We have reduced our search to 2 options, and we're currently finalising our review of those options, and we expect to submit a business case to the Department for the Economy and in turn the Department of Finance any day now. And that then in turn will lead, once that business case is approved, it will lead to us establishing a brand new office in the Northwest. That office will be aligned with the strategy of the organisation, with the image that we want to project to local and to international investors, and it'll future-proof our presence in the Northwest because it'll allow for organic expansion in terms of the number of executives on the ground doing business and regional development work. So I hope to be in a position to confirm our selection and hopefully approval of the business case with this committee as soon as possible.
Great, that's really encouraging. And look, thanks very much for that update. I appreciate the work, and the team locally have been excellent. And I think there's so much capacity there to continue to develop in the Northwest. The second question is around research and development. You know, it's an issue that I'm very interested in. You've mentioned the statistics there, and particularly around the companies in the Northwest who have been, I suppose, enhancing that R&D offering. Are there any new companies that you're working with? And also, my second part to that question is, what engagement is there with local educational institutions, for example, our universities and further education colleges, to try and create that link and that relationship between colleges, universities, industries?
So on the first point, Padraig, as you know, we have a very large portfolio of 3,500 clients, and relative to the size of the portfolio, not enough of those clients are doing research and development and innovation. So we have it as a priority in our strategy to get more of our existing clients to do R&D and innovation, and I'm glad to report that the number doing R&D and innovation is now higher as a consequence of what we delivered in the first year of our strategy. Our research and development and innovation team over the last 20 months have run a series of clinics around Northern Ireland, using each of our regional offices as an anchor to promote the importance of R&D and innovation to our client base. So the message about the importance of that and the range of supports available to encourage clients to undertake R&D now is much higher than it ever was. Specifically in the Northwest, the largest R&D investment in the history of the organisation was announced in recent months, north of £110 million undertaken by Seagate, which is a fabulous achievement both for the company and for the Northwest. And we are engaged all the time with our clients right across Northern Ireland, including the Northwest, sitting down with them saying, work with us to undertake R&D. So that is actually happening. On the second point, your question is about that triple helix, that very, very important relationship between government, academia and clients about promoting the research and development and innovation agenda. We're doing that all of the time, talking to the colleges, talking to Ulster, talking to Queen's University, talking to the research centres embedded in those third level institutions and connecting our clients into the capability in the university. And we're actually supporting research and development projects, collaborative R&D projects between our clients and the universities all the time, and also leveraging off the very good investments in city and growth deals. And our new Chief Development Officer, Alison Curry, who will lead our regional agenda, she's also going to have responsibility for the R&D and innovation team. So joining all of those elements that you've alluded to together, that will now be more effective, because structurally within the organisation, you'll have a very senior member of the executive leadership team and all the people that report to her working on that agenda that you've alluded to.
No, that's really encouraging, and I know it's obviously something that there's a huge collaborative piece of work that invest are critical to. So I'm looking forward to seeing that develop, and I want to thank the team for the fantastic work that's been done on that to date. So that's me. Thanks very much for your presentation today.
Thank you. I would add as well that members of our board, our chair and the head of our ARIC committee, Don McLenaghan, have also been working and contributing as part of the McGee task force in the Northwest. So the work that we're doing in the regional agenda isn't confined to just the executive leadership within Investinai. It also embraces members of our board. Thank you for your question.
Thanks.
Thank you, Padraig. Sinead?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. And congratulations on the new posts and appointments. And we look forward to Alison joining the team as well, so that we have a real focus on regional balance. And nobody will be surprised that I want to focus my attention on some of the facts and figures that you presented in your papers, Kieran. So I want, first of all, to take you to 1.4 of your papers. And you've indicated that you've secured 19 new investors from markets including GB, Ireland, India, Canada, and US, generating 44 million. And there's also a number of companies there at the top of, well, I don't know if it's the top of page 37 in my papers, but just it's under 1.4. Is that a sample of the new investors?
Yes, Sinead, that's just a sample, because not all of the new investors have made formal public announcements. So unless the client,
right, okay.
Unless the
so
client
can I
gives
take
us,
you through? Can I take you through? I'm just wondering where they're located. So Napier, where is it located?
Napier is located in Belfast.
Ergo, where is it located?
I believe it's in the Belfast area.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yes.
Spider Rock, where is it located?
It's in Belfast.
Symphony, where is it located?
In Belfast.
Spark, where is it located?
Mark is in Belfast.
Control Alt, where is it located?
Alt. Control-Alt or Control-Soft, sorry.
Sinead, if the point of the question is to say
Yeah,
that the
and
ball...
9 Fin, sorry, I just want to go through it here. 9 Fin is also Belfast, and Paget Brown, it's also Belfast. Those examples of new investors, every single one of them is in Belfast. So what is the target? I'll try to get on to the supported businesses as well, because you're indicating 59% of them are within the regions and the sub-regions, but just in new investors, I would like a breakdown of all 19 new investors and their current location, because every one of them that is listed in your papers is located in Belfast. So it is total investment, well, millions and millions and millions of pounds of investment of the ones that we can see here, and roughly about 250 jobs in and around that in the Greater Belfast area. What is actually the target of new investors outside of Belfast? So can you give me a breakdown of that target?
So, Sinead, maybe just to come back, we will obviously follow up with the information requests that you've made there. There are a number of investors within that 19 who haven't formally announced and are either outside the Belfast area or are operating on a remote basis across Northern Ireland. So I just wanted to clarify that within that number of 19.
Okay, so can I ask, really, it is all about data for me.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get a full profile of the regional breakdown of new inward investors? I want to know about the company name, the council area, the project location, the value of the investment, and the SNI support, and the total investment leverage, because it's only then when we have got that data that we truly understand if regional balance is actually happening when it comes to investment coming into Northern Ireland.
We don't
And
have
it's
that.
also,
We don't have that information to hand today, but we're more than happy to provide it to you.
okay, because the information that I've got in the papers is, I mean, it's quite clearly all of those announcements were all Belfast. So in relation to 1.7 in your papers under heading promoting people and places, you've indicated that 59% of supported investments are located outside the Belfast metropolitan area, just short of 1% of the target for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me the precise definition of supported investments? And is this the number of projects, or is this percentage a value of investment? I just want to be clear exactly what that figure means.
The 59% refers to investments, not investment value. It refers to investments.
So can I have a breakdown then of the value of those investments outside of the Belfast metropolitan area? Because the value is probably the most important aspect of. It's not the number, because they could be small types of projects. So I need to know the value of them, and again broken down in the same manner as I've requested in terms of inward investment as well, because it's really important. And just for clarification, that diagram that you've shown, 59% outside BMA, you've listed 4 and you've listed 4 in the 41%, but is that just a sample?
But that's just a sample, just to illustrate the point. So on both sides of that graphic, you have examples of some of the investments that occurred within and without the Belfast metropolitan area. But they're just examples. They're not the complete list.
So can you give me the numbers behind the percentages?
We absolutely can. And your point about distinguishing between the number of investments and the value of the investments is well made. And on occasion, that point applies in relation to the Northwest. So on a value basis, the largest and most valuable R&D investment that we've won in the last 12 months went into the Northwest, not into the Belfast metropolitan area.
Yeah, and the value of that investment was made by the company in the Northwest. Seagate made that investment, and I really value it. Seagate has been in dairy for 33 years, and it is an integral part of the economic outputs of the region. And the fact that they have made this £100 million investment in R&D in that site maintains that site. And gives that site a future. So it is of critical value, and we welcome that entirely. And we welcome the investment that Invest NI has made on top of that. But to be sure, it is one business, and dairy needs new investors now of a similar advanced and innovation type of business coming into the Northwest.
And you'll
So, and
appreciate
also,
you'll appreciate it was the partnership between Invest NI and Seagate that led to that investment. So both teams
100%.
working together.
I know exactly what's going on. I'm quite close to the ground there regarding Seagate, and I do value what you've done and the work that you have done to support them in the region. They are critical to the Northwest, and we value them completely. So that is to be congratulated and supported, absolutely. And the Alchemy acquisition is also good news. And Ian Ernst & Young, EY, I've made a visit to the offices as well, and they're very nice offices in that as well. So regional balance obviously is critical. And we need to see the actual outputs of it. So I really need more data. Those papers don't tell me what I really need to know. So what do you think are the main policies outside the purview of the Department of Economy impacting the ability to attract investment to Northern Ireland, but specifically to the regions in Northern Ireland? Are they health profile? Is it economic activity? Is it connectivity? You know, what are the issues that you experience that are not attractive to investors?
So in terms of some of the challenges that every investment promotion agency, not just Invest NI, needs to manage in terms of attracting investors into the regions would be the availability of sufficient infrastructure to accommodate the operations of companies. So if it's a manufacturing investor, connectivity to the grid, water and wastewater capacity, the availability of land to build or expand a premises, and then the availability of people and people with specific skills. These are issues. Investors are now doing very, very sophisticated due diligence on all of the locations that they might be encouraged to locate in by Invest NI and other IPAs. So making sure that we have all of the information about the strengths of particular regions is really important. So what we've done over the last 12 months is that we've reviewed and updated and developed our value proposition for each of the 5 operating regions that we now have within Invest NI that covers all of Northern Ireland. And when Alison Curry joins the team in January, she'll be overseeing the articulation of those value propositions in partnership with Anne and her team to even more foreign investors. I should say, in respect of the Northwest, of all of the site visits by international investors that we've had in recent years, after Belfast, the region that has received the bulk of the site visits has been the Northwest.
And how many of them have you transformed into actual new investors into the Northwest?
Well, we'll get that data. We'll get that data for you. But EY, for
so you
example,
don't know, is it 1 or 2 years? Is it several? You know,
well,
how many
I don't have that. I don't have that information to hand. But the main thing is we have succeeded in convincing international investors who do have choices to go and visit physically the Northwest, look at the locations, meet with other clients there, and leave with a favourable impression of the region. And these discussions are ongoing. I think the fact that EY have decided to set up an office in the Northwest, that reflects years of ongoing dialogue and interaction between Invest NI and EY's operation in Belfast. And we intend to continue discussions with companies that already have a presence here who we could encourage to establish a second site, not just in the Northwest, but on all of the other regions outside Belfast.
So Kieran, I want to labour the point slightly. Out of the 19 new investors, is there any of them in the Northwest?
We'll have to check for you, Sinead. I don't believe so, but there might be. Anne, have you got the information there?
There are, although it hasn't necessarily been publicly announced, Sinead, but there is certainly one that has entered the area via acquisition. And also, as I say,
sorry, that's Alchemy acquisition.
No, it's not.
Probably.
No, sorry, it's not the Alchemy one. No, forgive me, it's not Alchemy. That's this year's figures. We're talking about the 24-25 numbers, so it's a different one. But there's also a number that, as I say, have set up but are offering roles right across Northern Ireland on a remote working basis as well. We, they will employ.
Do you list acquisitions as new investors?
Where there is a growth plan attached to it and where we're engaging, but no, typically not. These are new foreign direct investors.
So it never was.
No.
Considered as a data. So back to the data. Sorry, Chair, just 2 seconds. But back to the data. Do you have a figure, a target for new investors outside of BMA, or are you just doing supported investments as a target? Because and it's the number of projects rather than the value of the projects. So I just want to know what the target is in your strategy.
The headline target is 65% of all investments outside the BMA at the end of the strategy period, and we've set a target that we ramp up each year. So in year 1 of our strategy, it was 60%. This year it'll be 62, working up to the 65%. And we'll get you a breakdown of those numbers and provide them to you offline.
All investments, including new investors?
Yes, so it's combined. So it's 65% of all of the investments, whether they're coming from domestic, existing companies already operating in Northern Ireland, or new inward investments. The target for inward investments over the life of the strategy is 60. We set a target in year 1 of 15 and we delivered 19. The target this year is 20. So we're trying to put more resources into the inward investment side of our business for the very reason those investments are more mobile. So we have more discretion to bring them to different parts of Northern Ireland because they're not already here. So we're now designing itineraries where we're saying, come and take a look at these regions, because these regions have capabilities and infrastructure and skill sets aligned with your business plan. So as we increase the target and we get more pull through in terms of site visits, there will be more investors going to various parts of Northern Ireland, including the Northwest. So we're in the ramp up phase. We want more foreign investment, not less.
And so does the City of Derry. Okay, thank you very much, and welcome. Our good job and well done on the journey of organisational transformation. A lot more has to be done on regional balance, quite clearly. Thank you.
Thank you,
I think
Sinead.
I've been to the City of Derry, Londonderry, quite a lot in the last 20 months. I can confirm that.
You're always welcome. Thank you.
I'm sure Sinead will have you down many more times before the end of this. Sinead will capture the requests just in terms of data from you at the end, and we'll make sure we follow up on those. Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Kieran and team. I've always been a strong supporter of InvestNI. I think they genuinely are a Northern Ireland success story. And whilst nobody gets everything right, there is no doubt that they've been a power for good in the Northern Ireland economy over many years. And I again want to re-emphasise my thanks to your colleagues, both previous and present, for the work they do to continue to promote Northern Ireland as a place to do business in.
Thanks, sir.
And in saying that, I would be misleading you if I did not say that I had concerns about where I believe the current Sinn Féin Economy Minister and her predecessor are trying to position bodies such as InvestNI. Adopting hard left ideological positions has inevitable consequences for business. It jars with economic growth, with business confidence, with jobs and investment. And all I can ask of InvestNI is that when they deal with this committee, they do so in a truthful way, so that this committee can hopefully hold those with political responsibility and indeed administrative responsibility accountable. So with that in mind, Former Minister Murphy appeared before our committee on the 11th of December 2024 and I asked the following. 4 senior directors of Invest NI with approximately 80 years of experience between them under the Chief Executive have resigned and are leaving the organisation over the next 3.5 months after being asked to reapply for their current jobs. Is that the Minister's understanding? He replied, no, it's not. The Lions Review was very critical of Invest. It is probably one of the most critical reports that I have seen in public life, but it recommended a restructuring at senior level. So where there were previously 4 people at that level doing a number of jobs, Invest NI have created 3 posts. So the 4 posts were no longer in existence and the people were offered the opportunity to apply for the new posts that were created, and it seems a number of people have taken the opportunity to leave the organisation. I further asked, is there something we're not understanding as a committee? So I want to refer you to page 23 of your annual report, 3rd paragraph from the bottom. During the year, Invest NI paid voluntary exit packages for 4 outgoing executive committee members, totalling a cost of 0.8 million. Yet on page 76, it describes one redundancy as being compulsory, 50,000 to 100,000, and other departures agreed, 3 numbers at 200,000 to 250,000 pounds. This appears to directly contradict the Minister's statement in front of this committee on the 11th of December last year. Can you explain why this contradiction exists?
I can't explain the difference between what the Minister said to the committee. I haven't seen his written evidence to the committee. I would need to look at the detail of that, Jonathan, before I could comment further. I can give you more colour in relation to the restructuring. So when I joined as Chief Executive Officer, obviously I read the Lions Review in its entirety and had discussions with the board and with the senior leadership team and the Department for the Economy around the Lions Review. And then once I was familiar with the business and beginning the process of developing a new strategy for Invest NI, as CEO, I decided that I needed to fundamentally restructure the business to make it fit for purpose for the foreseeable future. So I restructured the senior leadership team, took the decision to reduce the number of grade 3s from 4 to 3, and decided that I needed to create brand new positions to drive the strategy of the organisation so we could deliver even more for the people of Northern Ireland. So the role of Chief Commercial Officer, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Development Officer, they didn't exist. So those brand new positions were created, and as a consequence of that, the positions that the incumbents, the members of the executive leadership team at that time held, they no longer existed. So in a spirit of fairness, I said to those people, here is the job spec of the new roles. I would encourage you to look at them. And if you are interested in those roles, please apply for them. So understandably, when you've served an organisation loyally for 25 years and suddenly there's a new CEO responsible for the organisation and the organisation is developing a new strategy, you're going to reflect on whether you want to remain part of the organisation and work with that CEO to deliver on the new strategy, or whether you want to leave the organisation and pursue new opportunities. And in this case, 4 people decided that they wanted to do exactly that. And then we followed our own guidelines and policies and NIC's procedures in relation to them exiting the organisation. So they received only what they were entitled to under NIC's policies and regulations.
You would accept that this is huge number in terms of 0.8 million pounds to exit a number of people from an organisation. I think anybody would accept that. But what I said, whenever I said at the previous committee, is there something we're not understanding? This committee was starting to become aware of a huge payout. And the only thing that we can conclude, given the figures, is that these directors were in some way pushed out with offers of significant financial incentives. Is that the case?
No, they weren't pushed out. I was happy for the directors in question to apply for the new roles, given their seniority and their experience. And I sat down and had very frank discussions with them, and they were treated with courtesy and respect And I encouraged them to look at the job spec and then come back to me and indicate their wishes. And they did, and they decided they wanted to pursue other opportunities. Some of them have gone on to join the boards of very important organisations in Northern Ireland. One has become CEO of another organisation in Northern Ireland. So it was their decision, their personal decision, which I had to respect, that they wanted to leave the organisation. It's important to say, I wouldn't describe it as payoffs or payouts. They got their statutory entitlements for leaving the organisation. And the way I look at this is, Invest Northern Ireland is Northern Ireland's principal economic development agency. The future of that organisation is worth, to my mind, £800,000 of investment in its future.
So on that, who approved and authorised these payments? Was it yourself?
Myself and the board in consultation with the department.
Okay. I want to talk now about the regional property portfolio.
Yes.
So you've talked about some of the infrastructural constraints that are affecting some of our businesses in terms of that portfolio. So you previously stressed that if we have the sites, they will come. That's to quote exactly what was said at a previous committee meeting.
Yes.
Yet your report warns that reduced budgets are putting targets at risk, and specifically that the lack of funding for the land and property strategy will hinder both site provision and regional balance, page 4. Are you now having to reset or downgrade your targets due to these budget constraints?
So what we've had to do is we've had to make provision in our targets and in our statements about how much investment may not happen as a consequence of some of those constraints, some of which relate to property. So I think we've indicated that we might win 150 investments less and several hundred jobs as a consequence of some of those constraints. But we have set aside budget for our land and property strategy. Between resource and capital, it's circa £3 million. And we've also sat back and we've recognised fiscal constraints, the realities of budgetary constraints in Northern Ireland, and the fact that the department has to look after a range of bodies, not just Invest and I, and therefore we've creatively used City and Growth Deal money to develop a site solution in Mid-Ulster in Desert Crete. And we're also working to develop a land solution at Mandeville in Craigavon. So we're trying to be creative while continuing to make the case for incremental funding for our regional property portfolio.
We're not looking at downgrading our targets due to the financial constraints at the
No,
moment? Okay.
we remain committed to our targets. Okay. So the organisation is working every day to deliver its targets, but we felt, in terms of transparency, that we needed to draw attention to this committee and to the department what might happen as a consequence of some of the budgetary constraints.
In my constituency, a manufacturer waited 4 years to complete a major factory due to on industrial land due to lack of adequate wastewater capacity. Mm-hmm. How many other projects are there in Northern Ireland that you're aware of that are being delayed due to critical infrastructure gaps, and what are we doing to address this?
So I don't have a specific number for you in relation to the precise number of projects that are either moving slowly or not moving at all as a consequence of constraints in the water and wastewater infrastructure system. What I can say to you is clients are saying to us, we need more water and wastewater capacity, and if you can help provide that in partnership with Northern Ireland Water, we will reinvest. So there is a number of projects impacted by that. But we have sat down with Northern Ireland Water, who have been very helpful and very constructive. We've sat down at a senior level, and they've briefed us on where there is constraints in their network, but they've also briefed us on where there might be some surplus capacity. We have then overlaid that on our land and property holdings so that we know where we have spare capacity and we can direct investments to those sites.
Okay. The Chair has went over in quite detail about the Israel policy that the department has adopted, and you've clarified whether that was a request or an instruction. I think you indicated request rather than instruction. So I would just want to know, what are the practical implications of this position for Northern Ireland businesses, particularly exporters and service providers with existing markets in Israel? Is there any consequence?
There isn't any immediate consequence because the policy to give effect to the Minister's statement in the House is work in progress.
This is the ethical procurement framework that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how far does that go? Because many countries, and I can name them, Morocco, UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Germany, and others, are actively partnering with Israel on defence, aerospace, cybersecurity, and advanced technology. Will the ethical procurement framework take into account those countries and how we interact with them in terms of investment? And given that the UK government has committed to increased defence spending, including in the devolved regions, an industry in which InvestNI themselves has touted as a major success to the Northern Ireland economy, 2 billion in turnover, 10,000 jobs. What is InvestNI going to do to actively pursue this growing marketplace, which has the potential to offer well-paid jobs in Northern Ireland and not be sacrificed on the altar of far-left ideological pursuits by the Minister? I'll start off with yourself, Kieran, if you want to talk about what you're doing actively to promote this specific sector.
So, as I said, Jonathan, there is a specific reference in the review of investments to the importance of the aerospace, defence and security sector. We have a pre-existing relationship with the clients active in that sector, and we're in active dialogue with them about reinvesting. So that's what we're going to continue to do. And we're going to look at trends and developments in the broad sector, aerospace, defence and security globally, with a view to identifying opportunities for Northern Ireland, and we will have appropriate conversations with those companies and with existing clients.
Mark, the ethical procurement framework, will it include these countries in terms of the supply chain?
It's too early to say yet, so I think we're still undertaking the work on that. Obviously, as part of that work, we'll look to understand the impacts of any policies and ensure that the Minister is cited on the policy choices and the impacts of those.
My final question, because I know time's running on, is dual market access.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be wrong for me not to bring this up because I thought the interaction earlier on was really telling. So InvestNI continues to promote dual market access as an economic advantage. Yet businesses repeatedly, both here at the committee and indeed in person, are talking about and reporting increasing unrecoverable costs from customs procedures, duties, parcel charges since May, and now ICS2 requirements. Do you accept as Northern Ireland's lead trade body that dual market access does not constitute equal market access? Do you accept that principle?
Okay, I'll maybe come back on that one. So just, we talked earlier about the foreign direct investment dimension and the element of that within dual market access. And as I say, the discussion was around not being able to exclusively allocate our investments or expansions to the advantage of dual market access specifically. What I didn't get the opportunity to say, and it wasn't the nature of the question, was actually the impact that dual market access has had on our exporting businesses. So there has been a marked increase in exports from Northern Ireland to both the EU and GB. And in fact, in the past 3 years, we have been the only part of the UK to increase our goods exports to the EU. That said, I take your point. Levering that market access advantage does not diminish the challenges that businesses here are facing in terms of particularly GB to NI movements. And that's why I guess in terms of the Chancellor's statement last week and the £16 million allocated to advance kind of the GB to NI and NI to GB trade flows, that is very welcome. In fact, also the recommendations of Lord Murphy in terms of the one-stop shop for information, etc. And advancing the work of Intertrade UK, I think are all welcome developments.
It's a good answer, Anne, but it's not the answer to the question I asked. Do you accept that dual market access, as marketed, is not and does never equate to equal market access? Because if we look at those GB importers to Northern Ireland compared to those EU importers to Northern Ireland, there is significant customs requirements for GB businesses entering Northern Ireland, therefore friction, therefore costs Therefore, it's not an equal playing field. Do you accept that?
Well, there is a difference between, yes, the GB to NI movements and EU to NI movements, yes, if that's the question in terms of the equality. Yeah.
We look at the figures. So we're again trying to justify dual market access as a net benefit when the market and business feedback suggest escalating costs, not gains. Northern Ireland imports 16 billion from GB, all requiring custom processes, and 7 billion from the EU, while exports to continental Europe remain below 2018 levels compared with 17.9 billion to GB. So the data doesn't suggest that dual market access is having the impact in which some would like to suggest. Is that not factual?
From an exporter point of view, in terms of their ability to access the EU 27 and GB on a more competitive basis than other suppliers into those markets, is there in terms of, I guess what you're saying is in terms of the supply chain movements, into Northern Ireland.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I know.
You said last question.
Yes,
5 questions ago, so I don't want to be accused of favouritising anyone. So, Gary, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to all of the team for coming in. And I just want to put on record my thanks to Invest NI over the years, particularly the Northwest team through Des. He has been working for many years, in my opinion, in a very hostile political environment, particularly with elected representatives in the council, and they need to be commended for working through that and trying to bring investment to the Northwest. Kieran, in terms of the one of the headlines of the BBC, you'll recall, stated that one of the Northwest's best-known business figure resigned from the board, alleging the Invest NI of discriminating against the Northwest. Now, that's not something that I witness. What I see is an Invest who continue to try and develop and bring jobs against a difficult political environment. What is your assessment of that? Do you, obviously you don't agree with the assessment that Invest is actively discriminating against the Northwest?
No, I don't. What I see within the organisation is a genuine attempt to deliver more business right across Northern Ireland to every region, including the Northwest. I wouldn't agree with a characterisation that we're discriminating against the Northwest at all. And in my earlier response to Padraig's question about our intention to establish a new office in the Northwest and to scale up our team there and put more resources on the ground, that in combination with the recent announcements that I alluded to by Seagate, by NTT, Alchemy, EMY and others, is evidence to the contrary, that if anything we're discriminating in favour of the Northwest, not against it.
No, and I welcome that, and I knew your response obviously would be to push back. And I think it is very important as political representatives that we talk this place up. I'm proud of Londonderry, I'm proud of the Northwest, and I see the positive work. Listening to some elected representatives, you'd think that we are literally a basket case and not worth investing in. That's not what I recognise. In terms of the 2.2 billion euro space defence sector, it is so important, and I think that we need to ensure that we're maximising that investment and seeing it go further. I do, however, sense a reluctance, particularly among some people in the Northwest, to almost want to be seen to be pushing that particular sector. Do you sense, Kieran, any reluctance here in the Northwest to push that sector for any particular reason?
No, personally, I haven't experienced any reluctance or pushback from the Northwest in relation to that sector, but I do accept that there will be a diversity of views across society around sectors like aerospace, defence and security. And we must respect those diversity of views, but there is an economic opportunity for Northern Ireland embedded in that sector, which we as Northern Ireland's Economic Development Agency are duty bound to pursue.
No, absolutely. And as you say, we respect, of course, people's views, but that cannot allow the denial of other people to have the opportunity to go for those jobs and to apply for those jobs. So I would just urge you to continue doing the work that you're doing and pushing this very important sector. Chair, just in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump across very briefly to the report. Kieran, in terms of developing and achieving sustainability, I'm looking down some of the targets versus the actual achievements. The development sustainability plans with companies, the target was 40, actual achieved was 24. If you look at the value of investment, again, significantly lower in respect of the target and the actual investment achieved. What is the reason for that? Are we sustainability is so important, obviously, to our businesses going forward. What is the reason that we're falling so short in those targets?
Yes, that's a very fair question, and it is obviously one of the areas in our strategy where we have been underperforming. There's a number of reasons to explain it. The vast majority of our clients are small and medium-sized enterprises. So when we sit down with them and we have a conversation around developing a sustainability plan, they have to look at that in the context of the range of priorities and demands and pressure on their time, on their staff, and on their resources. And depending at the time that we have the conversation with them, many of them view it as discretionary spend and as a tier 2 priority. So they say to us, look, we would like to work with you to develop a sustainability plan because we see the obvious benefits of it to our business and to wider society and the environment. But it's not something we can devote time and resource to at this particular point in time. So that's the reason for the undershoot, but it's not. You shouldn't interpret it as us standing back from that priority. We will continue to have those conversations with clients, and we are confident that over time, more of them will develop sustainability plans. But at the moment,
So
it's an area of weakness.
Right, yeah, and so effectively businesses have so much else to get on with. Ultimately, they're sort of, the sustainability and those sort of plans are sort of secondary to them.
They're saying to us, Kieran, we have to make choices. Do you want us to invest in plant and equipment? Do you want us to automate our processes and boost our productivity, or develop a sustainability plan? We can't do both at the same time. So they will obviously opt for that project that's going to have an immediate positive impact on their business. Treat the sustainability agenda as a tier 2 priority, but we will return to that conversation with them. It's a timing issue, not a fundamental objection.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Gary. David.
Thank you, and thank you all of you for coming in. We started off so positive. We started off really positive. Your presentation was so positive, and I want to look at some of the things you brought, but honestly it's disappointing to hear some of the language used and questions to you that talk us down and actually don't look at the opportunities that we have and the difference that the dual market access actually gives us compared to the rest of the UK and actually with the South. But when you actually talked a little bit, and I'm going to follow on from Johnny because I could name multiple companies in Lagan Valley who have expanded because it's not the only reason, but it is key and critical part of that. So is that happening right across Northern Ireland as a whole? Are we seeing exports growing, but due to having access to 2 markets?
Yes, I think. I think there's 2 things. There are companies that are consciously taking advantage of dual market access and are levering it very strongly, and there are those that are more likely to want to go on record kind of supporting dual market access. There are those that, whenever they analyse their business and are perhaps increasing their share, their market share in the EU versus their GB competitors, they don't automatically make the connection. Right, but it's the product of dual market access because it's so much more difficult for perhaps their competitors in GB to target those markets. So I think we've still a lot more work to do genuinely around the awareness raising for our businesses here, but it is certainly a factor being cited by many. I guess when it becomes a decision-making factor for investors or a benefit for exporters, because it is perhaps the subject of debate as it has been here this morning, there are a few companies actually want to put their head above the parapet and explicitly say they're benefiting genuinely so.
But just to build on that observation, David, if I may, it's important not to see our promotional work exclusively through the lens of dual market access. So we have a large portfolio of clients that want to export to as many markets as possible. and capture commercial opportunities in as many markets as possible. So we don't confine our promotional work to just the EU and to GB, the rest of the UK. We're looking for market opportunities for our clients on a global basis and leveraging our global office network to do that.
So are you saying there that actually with companies, so we are creating jobs, we are creating more skill opportunities, and we are creating exports with jobs, right? Are we having companies, of what you're saying, that are actually scared to put their head above the parapet because this has been politicised, and rather than just delivering jobs and everything else, they're actually staying below the radar and just getting on with it?
Yes.
Thank you. Can I then look at R&D? Your figures in R&D are pretty impressive whenever you look at those. So you've 160 million, I think you said, was the target, and it's 245. So that's about 50% actually up on what the target was, or roughly. What is that one particular business has caused that, or what is the reason, the drive behind that?
So the reason for the drive behind that was the fact, as I said, that our research and development and innovation team went out into our regional office network and held a series of clinics to raise awareness right across our portfolio of our service offering and the range of programs and supports available to them to embrace R&D and innovation. So that was the principal driver of our work in progress. But I think Seagate's investment did have an outsized impact on the value of the R&D investments that we delivered in the first year of our strategy.
So so R&D for me, if we look at this, is exporting into the future. So you're getting new products, and we're developing stuff, and the intellectual property owned here that then brings wealth and prosperity to people. So as we move forward, will that continue to grow at the kind of rate that we're seeing?
Well, that's the intention. We want more companies doing R&D and investing more in our R&D. We had a great year because of the significance of the Seagate investment, so we want to build on that. Right now, when we look in our pipeline, there's some very, very high value further R&D investments from a broader range of clients in the pipeline.
And at the other end of the spectrum, we also have an internal target for first-time investors in R&D as well, to continue to feed that pipeline coming through.
And then what support is there to enable that, and to grow that, and to actually, see this continue to grow?
There's a whole range of solutions, David, from innovation vouchers all the way through to grant for R&D, to access to national and even EU sources of funds.
Just as we look at Margaret, there was an MOU signed between the Minister and the South recently to sort of work out what benefit do you see for yourselves in that, as trade to the South, I suppose, is export, but then as a stepping stone into those other markets that you've talked around the world. What are the key bits now that Invest can do to start to push?
So we have set up what we call a new hub office in Dublin. So the team in Dublin are looking for export opportunities in ROI for our clients here, and there has been increased expressions of interest by companies headquartered in ROI about establishing a presence in Northern Ireland. So we now have the infrastructure and the resources on the ground in the Republic to build in that memorandum of understanding to attract more investment into Northern Ireland from the Republic.
And then the connection then between Enterprise Ireland and IDA, is the relationships there built, or does this help in any way?
The relationships are very, very positive. Yeah. So, for example, in relation to Enterprise Ireland, we partner with them in the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year programme. Pleased to say that 3 of our clients, 3 companies from Northern Ireland, made it into the final this year, which is great because that raises the profile of the quality of the companies and the quality of the talent that we have here. And we partner with Enterprise Ireland. They run a Leadership for Growth programme every year, and we send some of the leadership teams from our clients here to participate in that programme where they gain exposure to their peers in the Republic and share experiences, establish interpersonal relationships, which can often be the basis then for commercial opportunities for both sides. So that's what we're doing. And we have a good positive relationship with IDA Ireland as well.
Very good. Last for me, I couldn't pass this by, but with no land in Lagan Valley. So whenever Johnny's talking about connection problems and those plug and play, are we being really strategic with where those plug and play parks that you talked about, I think the last time you were here, or you talked about one in Crickhaven and is, but are we being strategic of where those are going?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are, because we have to buy, once we have the budget, we have to buy land in an area where the connections to the utilities can be delivered in a reasonable time frame. The last thing we want to do is to buy land where the infrastructure won't arrive for 5 years or even longer, and then we effectively have a stranded asset that we can't utilise really to attract investment, to accommodate the needs of existing clients. So we're being very, very careful about which property solutions we're prioritising.
Well, listen, thank you so much for everything you do for all of us.
No, thank you for your questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I just need to start by saying I've been very outspoken on Palestine, and not because I harbour any far left ideology, but because it's a humanitarian issue to me, and I think we should be cognizant of how we are potentially complicit in genocide. To me, it's very clear we do need an ethical procurement framework, and actually what I think we need is an international relations strategy. Then that would mean we could take some of the politicking, party politics out of this and focus on growing the economy, supporting businesses and creating opportunities for the next generation, which is what we all want on this committee. What engagement, if any, have you had on the development of an international relations strategy with the Executive Office? They're developing that at the moment, I understand.
I haven't. You have, Mark?
Personally, none as yet. I've had engagement with that team and talked about a number of broad things going on. There may be members of my team who've been involved at a more detailed level, but I haven't personally been involved in.
Have you, Anne?
Yes, our international group, so our trade and investment group have had early stage engagement with the international relations team in the Executive Office in terms of just aligning, I guess, where our priority sectors and markets are, and just making sure that that aligns with the direction of the international relations plan.
Okay. Yeah, it strikes me that that's massively important, especially when you're talking about the network of global offices and how we do reach these global markets. Mm-hmm. Having the strategy, I just think, is so important for so many reasons. Quite a lot of, I agree with what David said about R&D and how impressive that is, and we've kind of covered that. So what I'd like to ask a bit more about is skills. We've had the skills action plan published in recent months, and I'm just curious from your engagement with businesses what you see as the kind of key skills gaps and barriers that they're facing at the moment.
I would say across the piece, actually, it's probably more at the experienced hire, actually, end of the market, and that's where kind of conversion programs and upskilling programs, whatever, are quite important. But so I would say they're across industries, rather than going into the weeds of any particular one. It would be at that experience level to lead and seed new teams of school leavers, graduates, etc.
Okay. Thank you. I've just set up the all-party group on artificial intelligence, and I really believe that we can be a world leader in this space, much like we are on cybersecurity. Curious if you can just speak a bit to what you're seeing in the AI landscape, changes being made, and how an AI strategy would really help.
Sure. So firstly, our view is that in terms of artificial intelligence, it is being adopted at pace by many clients and many sectors, so that's positive. It'll have both job creation and job displacement effects, so it'll create jobs, but it will also destroy jobs. The net effect, though, will depend on the specifics of the company and of the sector. We see potential job growth in cybersecurity, actually, as a consequence of artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is increasing the volume and the frequency and the pace at which cyber threats are being created. Those threats are being created by actual artificial intelligence itself. Therefore, cybersecurity providers, the cybersecurity industry, needs to adopt AI to combat those AI originating threats. And actually, in the last 3 to 5 years, brand new roles have been created within the cybersecurity industry to combat AI originating threats. So you have AI threat hunters and AI risk, cyber risk and cyber compliance roles now being created. And globally, there's a shortage. There's actually 3 to 4 million unfilled job vacancies in the cybersecurity industry globally. Northern Ireland continues to have a fabulous reputation actually in this space. So we will be confident that we can lean into this opportunity and see more sophisticated jobs being created in Northern Ireland as a consequence of AI. There will be some current roles that will be commoditized, like log triage and SOC 1 analysts in the AI industry. Those roles will disappear, but they will be replaced by these more high-value roles. And I think David Crozier and our colleagues in the Artificial Intelligence Centre, they're actually doing fabulous work. And David and his team attended our recent staff conference to highlight what they're doing, and we're building connections between his work and our clients. So we have a more joined up ecosystem in relation to artificial intelligence and cybersecurity operations in Northern Ireland. So we would be optimistic about future job growth.
And thank you so much. And I think it's a really important point, and why I'm so interested in this. It's not that I'm not aware of the risks. I think there are massive risks. And so we need to be fully aware of the potential and the risks and make sure that we're all fully informed. But I agree, David and the team are doing excellent work. And I think that's all from me, Chair. Thank you. And thank you.
Kate is our in-house expert in relation to AI, but that work that she's doing in terms of the all-party group is really important. So anyone from the organisation who can feed into that and tap from that knowledge would be really, really useful if they would do that. Diana?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the committee today, and thank you for your presentation. There's a lot of good stuff there, good improvement that we're seeing. So just commend Invest NI. A lot of what I was going to raise has obviously been covered this morning. And as a committee, we're looking at other bills and legislation, in particular the Good Jobs Bill. And I just wonder, have you fed into the consultation? Have you conducted an impact assessment on the Good Jobs Bill in GB? We're seeing the Labour manifesto has changed in saying that day one rights to do with dismissal, they're going to roll them back to 6 months. So have you an opinion? Have you fed into the consultation on that to the Minister?
I'm not aware if we
maybe Mark might have some perspective on consultation around the Good Jobs Bill.
Yes, I'm not aware of Invest feeding in directly, but obviously I think there are mechanisms and engagement forums with business more generally that the team taking forward the policy development around good jobs are utilising to ensure they're engaging with and hearing from businesses on their perspectives.
Because we did express as a committee, our concern that it was conducted during a time when there was low awareness, and we felt that sufficient stakeholders hadn't engaged, and that would be something that we were concerned that it has a wide enough reach that it really has been consulted upon most widely. So I'd appreciate.
I'm not aware that we've done an impact assessment either, but I'll check those points for you and come back.
And is it something you would look at, Kieran?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really important to look at it.
Yes, please. Thank you. So really, everything that I wanted to say has been covered in a large part. But more locally for me, and looking at peripherality of the region that I represent from Anna South Tyrone, we've met before, Kieran, and we've had good conversations. FDI, there's nothing happening there. I'm looking at how do we grow manufacturing in the region, particularly up from Anna, support that. There's potential there for growth. I just wonder if there's anything you can tell us of your intentions for support going forward.
I think, as you know, we have a great team down there led by my colleague Etna McNamee, and we plan to expand Etna's team and the capabilities of that team so that they can drive the regional development agenda in Fermanagh. Alison Curry, when she comes in, our new Chief Development Officer, then will amplify all of that work. As I said, we're looking at our value propositions to attract industry into all of the regions in Northern Ireland, including your constituency, and trying to identify which companies would be best aligned with the strengths of that region. We're going to also update our target lists of the companies we're going to be targeting internationally to strengthen our FDI pipeline, and then matching those companies with particular regional strengths in Northern Ireland. So there are some of the steps that we're taking to raise the profile of the region and bringing in more site visits so investors get to come down into Fermanagh, into your constituency area, to see what it has to offer is something that we're trying to do.
You can understand that some of the major drawbacks for investors is going to be the location, peripherality, connectivity, digital connectivity, and we've already mentioned wastewater. The challenge is there. So, I mean, it's keeping that focus on the need to really speak to other agencies, other departments about, you know, strengthening the availability of that infrastructure, because there will not be growth if that isn't readily available.
So as you know, the CEO of BT was in town recently, and InvestNI and BT jointly announced a new innovation centre. And in the discussions that we had with Alison and her senior team, it became very clear that BT has invested a lot in broadband infrastructure and broadband services in Northern Ireland. So we have one of the strongest offerings in that area in terms of connectivity that we always draw international investors' attention to, and that has served us very, very well. So that we don't want for connectivity as a consequence of the investments made by BT.
And looking at, you're talking about relocating your regional office in Londonderry. Have you considered relocating from Omagh to Enniskillen? Because I notice, you know, when you look at the map there, and when you look at where the regional offices are located, is there any benefit in actually moving more centrally in Fermanagh to really address the border businesses?
Well, you're the first person that has raised the possibility of relocating from Omagh to Enniskillen with me. No one has raised that with me to date, including members of the team. But if that would serve our agenda in the region, it's something that we're open to considering.
I think I did speak about it to you before, looking at the workhouse and what the work that's been done in Enniskillen, Kieran, yes.
Okay, well, we have used, as you know, the workhouse for events regularly, and it's a very impressive piece of infrastructure.
Good. Okay, that's it for now, but thank you. Oh, just one question really, again, maybe looking more at global volatility and other external factors. I have a company, there's a company there that is really experiencing with international competitors who don't produce and manufacture to the same standards as them, and that global volatility there is quite a threat. I think they're coming through that experience now. They've had to lay off, but they will be recruiting. What can you do in that, you know, when you're working to different standards for those manufacturers?
Well, we can help companies to invest in meeting global standards. In fact, there's a project that we're currently considering from one client to invest in their systems to allow them to meet regulatory product standards on a global basis. So if the company in question wants to have...
Not suggesting this company isn't, it is, but maybe the other international competitors, in that sense, aren't.
Oh, you mean exploiting the fact that the competitors don't meet global standards?
Yeah.
There's limits to what we can do in a situation like that. It's ultimately the responsibility of the company that sees that delta between their compliance with global standards and a weakness in that in their competitors to draw their customers or would-be customers to the higher standards that they're maintaining compared to their competition. That's an operational matter for the clients.
Yeah, it is, but also it involves kind of targeting work from our overseas offices. So a couple of weeks ago we had an inward mission of buyers from Southeast Asia for materials handling solutions from Northern Ireland, and it was very clear that they were here to access the quality and the standard of our product versus a cheaper product that they could have perhaps got closer to home in China. So I think a lot of that has got to do with the quality USP and how our overseas teams do that successful matching of the objectives and needs of those buyers in overseas markets to a higher quality product.
And finally, one long-term issue on the horizon is inheritance tax and the impact on the agri-food sector. Are you lobbying on behalf of the agri-food business to support the farming industry, the agri-sector in this country?
I'm not aware that we're actively involved.
And do you think there would be a place for InvestNI input adding its voice to that?
I would need to look at the details before I could offer you a considered view on that.
Thank you.
Gemma, do you have any questions you want to ask? Okay.
Sorry, Chair, no, I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Gemma. I just want to then ask a quick final questions. Mark, so one of the Minister's key pillars of her economic vision is regional balance, and one of the best ways that Invest can achieve that is through their regional property fund. What's the current budget for the regional property fund?
For this year that we're in. I don't have that to hand. I don't know whether Invest colleagues do.
Yeah. It's in the region of about 3 million. Now we have put bids into the future year exercise, but we're obviously waiting the outcome of that.
So you're saying it's 3 million in this current year?
Yeah, it's resource and capital.
Yeah, and then next year is?
We've put in a bid for 3 million capital, and that ramps up over the next number of years.
Okay, perfect. And then finally, I just wanted to check. David raised a point. I don't want to misquote you. But you said businesses were refusing to put their head above the parapet because the issue of dual market access had been politicised. Is that what you said?
I would say they're less inclined to put their head above the parapet in terms of talking.
Is that your personal view or the view of Invest Northern Ireland?
Well, I can say from certainly an anecdotal perspective, when we go out to our client base seeking case studies, etc., there's a reluctance to come forward with case studies, and that would bring a lot of the proposition to life, so that's why we're doing that. But there would be a natural reluctance, yes.
Would there be a reluctance then, do you believe, on the other side of the equation, that those businesses who are currently being impacted by the implications of the Irish Sea border would not be want to put their head above the parapet?
No, I actually would say that there is perhaps a stronger voice because of the concerns that Jonathan and others have legitimately raised. So yeah, I don't think that would be the case there.
You don't?
No, I think actually just in terms of...
Did you read the report by the Federation of Small Business that was published about the impact of the Windsor Framework?
Yes, but as I say, I think from a representational point of view, in terms of the challenges and concerns of the operation of the Windsor Framework, there are a number of different kind of lobbying organisations, voices, etc. But when we went to establish a stakeholder forum regarding dual market access, there was an appetite genuinely to have a voice that would give effect to kind of surfacing the benefits as well. I'm not saying, as I said, I think they're two sides of the same coin, genuinely.
Exactly. Did you get people to come forward to be on your stakeholder engagement forum? And what is that? Is that a part of Invest Northern Ireland's work?
It's actually a collaborative forum that we've established with the department, actually. So it has got, for example, manufacturing and ADS, it's got industry representatives, it's got trade bodies, etc. All.
That's good. It's the first, maybe others in the room have heard about it, but I've heard about it. And I think that's the importance of it, is we need to find a solution that works for all businesses and all people here in Northern Ireland. Often we get to the scenario where the Windsor Framework is perfect in some people's views and it's unworkable in other people's views. What we need to get to a situation is we're agreed that we need to get to a dedicated position where we recognise the benefits and failings of all, and if we do want to truly deliver dual market access, that means unfettered access to our largest market in GB and unfettered access to the rest of the European Union, and that would be dual market access that everyone, I believe, in this committee could sign up to. With that, can I, on behalf of our committee, thank you very much for your work. We may have different political opinions in this committee, but we're all committed to advancing the cause of economic opportunities and economic development here in Northern Ireland for all of the people that we're honoured to represent, and you have a vital role to play in that, so thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Hey, colleagues, we're just going to summarise some of the follow-up actions. If we firstly just go with Sinead, just to make sure that we properly capture the issues that she raised, Peter.
So I think the issues that Ms McLenaghan raised were around regional balance, and she was looking for data on the location of new investors, a full profile, the value, the number of jobs generated, the support provided, the investment leverage, and this by local government districts, and that would be for new investors, and indeed around the location of the supported investments as well. Again, it's jobs, it's value, it's support, it's investment leverage. Additionally, I think there was also a question about the FDI visits that are to be converted into investments by local government district. So that information would, I think, give you an idea about where we are in terms of regional balance. I think also, if that's correct, Ms Armstrong asked about the impact assessment of the Good Jobs Bill and what the department had, what the Invest NI had done around that. And then the other issue was around other data, which was Northern Ireland's trade with Israel, also perhaps an update on the development on the guidance on genocide and on the development of the ethical investment framework. Members? Mr.
Yeah,
just
Chair.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Sinead. Yeah, sorry, I should have went to you first. Apologies.
Sorry, that was very well summarised, Peter, but just another piece of it. I want to know the wage, because that's all to do with the productivity as well, and the job outcomes locally and regionally. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sinead. Sorry,
Yeah, just to add to Sinead's point, it's about the 19 new investment projects, which are £44 million. I would just like to know how many of these are manufacturing projects, given that I think it was alluded to that the majority were services which fall outside the Windsor framework. So I'd like a breakdown of how many manufacturing projects are included. And to follow up on Diana's point, look, we'll all take different positions on the good jobs bill. I have a very distinct view on it, but it's important that we're armed with as much factual information as possible about businesses. I thought it was an excellent point to ask of Invest NI, who are dealing directly with clients, about how this will impact upon them, if it will, if it won't. So I think he actually did come back to say that it would be something he would be open to do. Maybe said he was up for it. Is there an ability for us as a committee to correspond back with Invest NI to say that we would like to see that? I think it would be very good for us from an information point of view before we would then go into obviously further consideration of any potential future legislation.
Is it seeing the impact assessment of the?
Yeah, I just think it's he was open to it. That's my point. I think we should follow up on it. Yeah.
David, did you want to raise anything about the Regional Property Fund Lisburn, or
I've dealt.
I
just couldn't.
Couldn't resist.
I would also just be keen. This new, I'm not sure the term they use, cooperative forum in relation to people who have had good opportunities with dual market access and those that have had difficulties with Windsor framework, and how the department's bringing those together with Invest. And I'd be keen just to get the sense of the membership of that work that they're doing, and whether they're trying to come up with joint proposals then that everyone could get buy into, if members are content to try and find information on that.
Agreed, members?
Yeah. Okay, can I thank members for their indulgence on that? I was keen to ensure that every member had their say in that, and if any member thought I was trying to shut down debate or discourteous to them, I apologise for that. I try to use this role to facilitate debate and discussion, so if anyone felt that I was attacking them personally, I do apologise for that. With that, members, can I call for a short recess before we move on to the section on RHI? With that, members, are we content that we take a short recess? Thank you.
Committee Room 30, sound. 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 Committee Room 30. 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 Sound. Committee Room 30, 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 sound.
Is there somebody new to do so?
Yes, Denzil, Cluff.
Okay, perfect. Okay, colleagues, we'll now move to item 7, which is the Renewable Heat Association Northern Ireland and Ulster Farmers Union. The committee stage of the RHI closure of non-domestic scheme bill is underway. Further to this, the committee will now receive evidence from the Renewable Heat Association Northern Ireland and the Ulster Farmers Union. The session will be recorded by the official report. I refer members to the Cork's Clubbering note in tabled items. A briefing paper from Rani and UFU is in tabled items. Other papers provided by them in respect of the Northern Ireland Affairs Committee is inquiry is at page 238, a departmental RHI tariff review paper at 244, the departmental RHI closure tariff consultation document at page 258, and a copy of the paper from Professor Rooney at page 279. Can I welcome colleagues to the committee today and thank you for coming along. We have Alan Hegan, who's the Director of the Renewable Heat Association Limited, John McLenaghan, who's the Deputy President of the UFU, and Denzil, Cluff, who my eyesight is so bad that I'm unable to say your position, so you're very welcome, sir. With that, I'll hand over to you, colleagues, if you wish to make an opening statement.
Okay, well, yes, well, first of all, just thanks very much for the opportunity and the invite to be here this morning. Very much welcome that opportunity. Really quick introductions for everybody. I'll start with myself. I'm John McLenaghan. I'm one of the Deputy Presidents within the Ulster Farmers Union. And Alan, you can...
Yeah, so... Good morning, everyone. I'm Alan Hegan. I'm a director in the Renewable Heat Association, and I'm here today along with John from the UFU and Denzil from Ecoerne to answer any of your questions regarding the closure bill and associated public consultation that you may have. The association itself has in the region of 300 to 400 current members and represents the interests of manufacturing, hospitality, retail, agribusiness, the care centre, housing associations, public authorities, charities and other businesses who own and operate renewable energy equipment for their heating needs, as well as being a voice for the businesses that operate in the commercial and industrial renewable heating sphere here, such as wood pellet and chip suppliers, equipment installers, biomass equipment service providers, mechanical consultants, energy consultants, academia and others. As for the bill itself, for the most part, Rani accepts that the consultation provides a pathway forward. The revised administrative arrangements and the banding proposals represent, under the circumstances, a prospective solution which will provide genuine benefits for the next 10 years, helping businesses' competitiveness in relation to their counterparts in GB and Ireland, and benefiting the local economy through good skilled jobs in the locally based biomass fuel production and maintenance sectors, as well as making a significant positive contribution towards meeting current greenhouse gas reduction targets. Notwithstanding backdating issues, as outlined in our consultation response, we feel that the banding proposals deliver a fair prospective balance to both participants and taxpayers. However, we do have concerns about certain technical and legal aspects of the proposals of the bill. Separating the legal from the technical and speaking to the legal firstly, at a high level we have concerns that the bill as currently drafted is too broad in scope and potentially takes away all future democratic scrutiny from the committee and assembly. It should be amended to put democratic safeguards in place. It in principle allows free rein. It creates a large element of legal uncertainty and uncertainty for participants. Essential safeguards to the proposed bill are democratic scrutiny controls put in place against downward revision of tariffs and duration of the support cycle. Also, there should be safeguards in place to prevent ad hoc unforeseen solo runs of any kind now or in the future. For participants who were encouraged by government departments to invest in renewable heat infrastructure and participate in the scheme, who naively bought into a Stormont departmental guarantee, who lived through the media frenzy of 2016-18 and who on many occasions suffered false demonisation, who also suffered the crippling effects of the 2019 Westminster tariff revision, now widely accepted to have been fundamentally flawed. Certainty for the next 10 years is critical, as well as local democratic accountability to provide genuine legacy closure for them. Speaking now to the technical side, the Association has commissioned an independent technical report on the closure consultation by Ecoerne Limited, widely regarded as the foremost independent technical authority on both NI, RHI and more widely renewable energy consultancy in NI. Denzil, I hope you'll be able to answer some technical questions on it. Just before I hand over to Denzil, just at a high level, the key recommendations that come out of this report include retaining transfer of ownership, retaining relocation, AS with GB, including replacement of installations to avoid legal and economic impacts as well as attrition. Emphasising the importance of supporting and utilising available energy sources available to rural economies and critically maintaining highly skilled jobs. Advocating for alternative inflationary tariff adjustments, i.e. an RPI-CPI mix to align with GB budgets. And in conclusion, the report makes the point that the proposed closure model is seen as an opportunity to revive renewable energy usage, reduce carbon emissions and sustain industry viability in Northern Ireland. There is an opportunity to get this right for everyone. Let's not miss it. Over to Denzil.
Good morning. I'm Denzil Cluff. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer. I'm based in County Fermanagh. I operate a renewable energy and engineering consultancy business. We offer and we specialise in all aspects renewable energy. I myself have been heavily involved with schemes, government schemes such as RHI, Northern Ireland RHI, and the scheme in GB. I'm also heavily involved with the support scheme for renewable heat in Southern Ireland. I suppose we began in 2013, and I have probably been involved with, to some certain different ranges of capacity, I've been involved with maybe over 50% of the installations with the Northern Ireland Renewable Heat Incentive. I have probably very extensive experience ranging from basics from heat meter readings right through to judicial reviews and challenging Ofgem on non-compliances. So I've probably quite experienced with RHI matters. So hopefully I can answer any of your technical questions on the RHI and the proposed closure programme.
And maybe, Chair, just following on from that, we had a bit of our database unfortunately doesn't allow us this information in the UFU to know how many of our members are still participants in the scheme, but we had a brief chat downstairs before we come in, and we probably reckon we have a few hundred. Alan, you have a number of hundred in your organisation, Denzil similarly, so whenever we add it all up, we have a crossover of course, but whenever we add them up, we're pretty sure we are representing the vast majority of boiler operators. So hopefully that maybe gives you a wee bit of reassurance in terms of why hopefully we can provide you with some useful information.
Thank you very much, John. Everyone content with that? Okay, thank you for that. I just think for both the public watching at home and maybe some of the members of the committee, it's important to distinguish between the bill and the regulations that will flow from this. So the bill which we are currently carrying out a committee stage on is a very tight and small bill, and what it does at this stage is empowers the department to make regulations to move towards managed closures and make payments in that regard. So before I move on to the regulations as such, which then is obviously something that will probably attract more public commentary, as the bill is currently drafted, not for going the discussions that we'll have in relation to the regulations, but the outworkings of those, do you have any concerns in relation to the bill as drafted?
I'll maybe start on that, and thanks for bringing that up, because yes, you're quite right. No, the bill is what really we want to get right in the first instance, and yes, we would have concerns, and those concerns are around, and Alan touched on them, and I'll probably come in on them again. It's that we want there to be a full and proper accountability within whatever happens going forward. We see a critical role for this committee, to perform in that. That's that sort of checks and balances. We want to avoid a situation whereby a department, DFE in this instance, can have the opportunity, the facility to amend or change any of this in the future without there being an element of scrutiny. And we would like to see this committee empowered within the bill to have the ability to do that.
So the regulations, though, haven't fully looked at them yet, finalised. I imagine that we'll see clarity on this will be subject to negative resolution, so that means that any uplift, downlift changes or initial proposals will be subject to formal approval by the Assembly, and that will come through usually this committee in the first instance, but it's something I know the committee will probably want to look at when concluding their report as to the role that the committee may or not play in that. Given that RHI is both cross-cutting and controversial, those regulations or changes, outworkings to them, will be subject to approval by the executive as well. So does that give you any reassurances that both there will be Assembly oversight and executive oversight of the regulations?
Yeah, well, yes, to an extent, and thanks for that. But I think,
Brian again. Sorry, my clerk has just corrected me. They're draft affirmative, so they're definitely going to be subject to the express bill of the Assembly.
I think that was our concern in reading the bill, was the broadness and scope of it, and the potential powers that it did give. So, I mean, in discussions that ourselves have had in conjunction with the UFU, we came to a unanimous conclusion that where we would like to see this is that future changes, especially the larger ones, such as tariff payment duration, should be subject to firstly a public consultation, and thereafter the full scrutiny at a committee stage and affirmative resolution of the Assembly. So we would like them safeguards in place.
And then if we just move to the regulations, one of the issues which has attracted substantial public commentary is the moving away in some aspects of the investigation / visits by the department. So the department will obviously take over administration of this scheme. Ofgem obviously have the expertise in doing that. Do you have confidence that the Department for the Economy has the capabilities to carry out the administration of this scheme moving from the 1st of April of 2026?
Yeah, I think it's regrettable that Ofgem are no longer going to be available to perform the role they performed previously. It is critical that we have within DFE the capacity and the capability to perform that role that was previously being undertaken by others. We have in our consultation, from a UFU consultation response, and others the same, we have made suggestion of potential additional safeguards that we'd like to see brought in terms of how DFE performs that role. There will be need for a good level of communication as we go through that transfer in April next year. Experience we would have from the wider agricultural sphere would be, once you introduce whether it's a new program or a new piece of IT or whatever it is, there are inevitably flaws. It doesn't get fully tested until it's on the ground. So we have been encouraging DFE to stress test as much as possible in advance of the changeover to avoid any problems during that initial period. There would need to be good communication from DFE back to boiler operators, so they're aware of what they would require. And I suppose that can be at a very practical level of organised webinars for operators and that type of stuff, which we have seen. Recognition of the fact that some of our operators may be older, they may sometimes have difficulty with some of those communication technologies. So building all of that into that transition, that DFE and that extra responsibility they'll be taking on from April. So yeah, we've encouraged them, and as organisations we're happy to work with DFE and give them our advice at a practical level, and some of that comes from outside of all of this, from other areas like we mentioned in terms of other agricultural stuff we've been involved with. Happy to sit with them and sort of plot a way through that, because we can see a potential for a few, it happens. We know that it can happen. So the more we can do in advance to avoid that by collaborative working together, the more likely we are to avoid all of that.
What's your view on the proposed move away from metering?
Yeah, I mean, we said again in our consultation response, we would prefer metering to remain. We are aware of the reasons why that can't remain in place. And it's basically an instruction coming back from Ofgem, as we all know. We actually we tried to contact Ofgem, we did contact Ofgem around this specifically, to get their perspective on the metering issue, but they referred us back to DFE, so we weren't actually able to get that direct conversation with Ofgem around metering. We saw meter. We in our consultation response, nobody, I think many of our organisations ever called for metering to be removed, but this is a situation we find ourselves in, and it's a case of what can we do? What's the best option that we can take forward?
So essentially, just to add to that, I suppose I'd echo John's comment. We are where we are in the sense that Ofgem is going. It is extraordinary. There are positives and negatives to be taken out of that. One of the positives is the scheme will be moving to be managed more locally. There has historically been issues with it being administered out of Cardiff or London, so that's a positive. The negatives possibly with the experience of the last 10 years. There are, within the association, there are members that have extensive experience of the NI scheme, also the GB scheme, the Southern scheme. We would give every encouragement to DFE to engage broadly with the wealth of expertise that exists in the private sector to help make this work. On the aspect of bonding specifically, the association has never been against metering. However, just to put it into context, metering is not the be-all and end-all of each and every scheme, and certainly the bonding proposal that we see, we came to the conclusion internally that the years that it represented, 17 to 19, did represent the best as far as usage was concerned, and I think that Denzil came to that conclusion independently of ourselves as well. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I suppose I come from more of a practical, and I'm dealing with Ofgem and SEAI and the likes of those departments on a daily basis. Ofgem and the likes of SEAI are facilitating this scheme, but it's the likes of services like our own, our consultants and that are out on the field, that are actually doing quite a lot of the work to make the job easy for Ofgem to make that decision. Now, I see that similar case for the likes of the department, that bringing in the correct people to sign off to make sure that everything's done correctly. Very similar to our own building control, where you need somebody to sign off work. The SEAI scheme in particular is very much orientated around somebody has a responsibility for all elements, and if anything goes wrong, it's that person's responsibility. So something similar, and I suppose on a daily basis I'm dealing with Ofgem. Ofgem are actually, I suppose, to a certain extent marking my homework, and they're looking at what we're providing to them, and once they're accepting of that, then it makes the process very straightforward. So I suppose the only thing that I would find difficult from an administration point of view, and probably Ofgem would echo this as well, is that heat metering seems to be the biggest issue of trying to overcome from an administration, and not so much from the point of it's a difficult process or anything like that. It's probably more from the fact that if a heat meter goes down and somebody's owed money on that particular heat meter, you then have to actually prove how did they use that fuel? Now, ironically, it goes back to the point where you have to analyse the fuel usage and how much has went through that particular. Now, the difficulty is whenever you have multiple boilers on one site that are using the same fuel, and you have to then start splitting it down. So I say this is why it becomes a wee bit more complex. But as far as heat metering goes, heat metering does give you a solution. However, the fuel analysis is probably the ultimate solution to get to the bottom of that.
Okay, that's useful. And then finally, just from me before open to colleagues, the Assembly took a decision on Monday in relation to a winter uplift to the tariffs. Just keen to take your view on those. Was that a correct decision, incorrect decision?
So I'll be very short. The association issued an update to its members. It was a short update notifying them of the change. The final line of the update was the association welcomes this development.
Yeah, I mean, our guys would be content. I mean, like, they're farmers. We always believe there's room for a bit more, but like, we're content with what's been proposed. We see it as moving forward, and that's important to us. And everybody recognises that at this stage. We need to move forward and believe this. We're content to accept what has been proposed, what's been introduced.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming in and your pack that came through. I suppose this is about fairness to the people who invested in good faith and operated in good faith, but also public trust and confidence for everybody moving forward. You talked about the abuse that was seen back at the time, and it's trying to move forward to kind of unwrap this all up. But the meter, and just to go back to the meter, and you just go to Phil. What is the best? Are you saying then that the fuel is the best indicator of what's been used rather than meters?
Ultimately, everything goes back to the fuel that's going through. Where that becomes slightly complicated as well is what calorific value you're operating to. The wood pellets is very straightforward because it's pretty standard and straightforward calorific value. The likes of the boilers themselves obviously have an efficiency as well. So again, that has to be taken into consideration. But personally, I always go back to the fuel to work out what has went through. But again, metering is it's there. Metering can be difficult from a practicality point of view of keeping them going. I suppose the other thing to point out in the Northern Ireland Renewable Heat Incentive Scheme is a lot of the meters have now taken that 10-year period where calibration was due. So there's actually quite a lot of meters out in the installations that are now no longer calibrated. Now the department did send out a notification to say that it was fine, you didn't need to change the meters, but there's a lot of heat meters out there that probably aren't calibrated at this particular stage.
Okay, so if you were to move, then they've said they're not metering. So if they're not, this is one of the difficulty I've had is the kind of three bands that there are. So if I have 51% and I raised it the year before, I'm getting 100% of the payment. Are you content that the department are taking that forward in the best in public interest for public spending money?
I suppose there's been extensive discussions about this behind the scenes. There's been discussions directly with DFE. There's also been I suppose discussions with the Centre for Advanced Sustainable Energy, and I suppose we're taking the lead from this on the independent model that was produced by David Rooney, and that it's going to deliver 12% IRR prospectively. So like it's a case of in a move that is moving to a bonding scheme based on historic usage. It's probably represents realistically, where it's going to be. I'm supposed to look from our perspective. We have asked for additional safeguards. We have asked for additional fuel records to be kept, and we have asked for increased surveillance. So look, it's in a nutshell, you're asking a broad question about metering. Metering helps, but metering isn't everything. And I would say that actually fuel records provide a much solider confidence than metering actually does.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, David. No, well, no, I'm happy to let you.
Go.
No, I think you made a couple of words you use in your opening statement. I think are critical, David. This, fairness and trust, and that's very much what we have got back from our membership. That's what they want going forward from the scheme, and there is an importance, and we have took that on board in terms of our consultation response, and like Alan, in terms of what they have done. We have actually asked DFE to beef up, if you like, in terms of the in terms of that part of the process. So we're encouraging them to ask for more records. We're encouraging them to do more inspection, to give that reassurance to the public, because all our people who are using this scheme have continued to use it because they have a genuine requirement for the heat. They see the benefits that heat brings them in terms of their enterprise, and they like the idea that that's offsetting the use of a fossil fuel, and it's a renewable fuel that they're using locally produced and everything else. So we want those people to feel they are part. They want to feel that they are part of a scheme which is delivering the things exactly as you describe in terms of fairness and accountability.
Yeah. So if we look at inspection, I was actually going to go to there. So if we look at inspection, so what you're actually, because at the minute it's 1 in 10 years basically. It's one inspection over the 10-year period. So what do you talk us through what that would look like if you were to do as you just said in English?
Yeah, well, it's in our response, so we would encourage there to be more than that.
But what does more look like?
I think that's where we would invite. That's sort of quite the question, I guess, for yourselves maybe to ask off the department. What's there's a balance here between what's achievable, what's necessary, what gives the desired result, what gives sufficient security to the public around the fact that funds are going to be used appropriately and correctly. It should be more than one. It should be more than one, and there should be, and that's where, and even in terms of the fuel records, we've suggested how that can be further improved as well in order to help provide that supporting evidence. So we would encourage that. I mean, if anybody thinks that they want to use this scheme to defraud public money, nobody wants them in the scheme, and we want them to want a very clear message to them. They will not. The scheme is not for them. This is for those genuine users, farmers, small business, hoteliers, who are using this scheme effectively and have continued to use it even through the downturn in terms of tariffs.
So just to come in after that on a couple of points. Firstly, we need to be cognizant of the fact that there has been 100% audits, that everybody is currently in the scheme, has already passed one, if not maybe two or three audits in their duration of being there. Specifically on the safeguard, so we've made suggestions, and we certainly have no objection to reasonable desk-based annual records being sought. We also have no objection to the increase, as John said, in the actual physical visits. We think they're two separate things, and certainly as opposed to using, if anything, it's only a suggestion, but the previous model of 100% inspections used an external contractor, and I think that was a significant cost per installation. Certainly one of the things that's been banded about is a move to a similar situation to the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, that have a clerk of works moving about in a van, or for that matter even building control, that have somebody that's employed, that's knocking about, that can that has long-term on-ground knowledge, that can use a risk-based approach.
Finally, for me, just on the bans, going back to the bans, you're talking about public money. If at that 51%, would you, if you're saying ban is the better way to go than metering, would you look at more bans there rather than?
Look, we wouldn't.
Or would you agree with more bans?
I suppose in essence, there's two sides to that. So there's a yes and a no. In principle, I suppose, look, there's no overt objection to moving from 3 bans to, say, 4 bans, 5 bans, but you get to a point where it gets to be very complicated. So it's a balancing, and it's balancing the ease of participants to actually be able to use to do that, and to be able to do it. And let's be realistic about this, because we're there isn't really. I take on board what you're saying, but it's. We don't think that the majority of participants will be at 51%. We think they'll be using it as they were in 2017 to 2019, which will give a broad range of inputs.
Maybe Denzil, I mean, because you operate on the ground, you know. And
it's probably very apt for me to respond in this one. I do quite a lot of heat usage analysis in Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, and what I find personally is if you were to set somebody a goal to say, well, listen, you're going to use 48 tonne to achieve your 51%. I think most of the participants, and in particular poultry growers, would struggle to know when they have hit that. Again, it's a case of if you need the heat, you need the heat. What I think, actually, my own personal view of the banding, I think actually the upper band or the standard operational band will actually encourage more energy efficiency, which it has done actually in the SEAI model, the SSRH, where people are given an energy cap and they're working to that. But the more that they can actually reduce their usage and try to improve energy efficiencies around their plants, this is seen to be a very, very successful in the SEAI scheme. I see no reason why this can't be the case in this scheme as well. And again, back to from an inspection point of view, the SEAI scheme actually do inspections on an annual basis. So somebody actually comes out to inspect it annually. More so from the point of view, they have all the information, they have all the fuel records, more from a point of view to make sure it's eligible, that nobody has added on any fossil fuel elements or ineligible heat usage, etc. And again, that probably is an element to the closure programme and closure model. I think it's going to be very difficult for somebody to try and well, let's say in inverted commas, game this, because I don't think there's enough there to enable somebody to actually go and say, well, I'm only going to use 51% and then I'm moving on to fossil fuels. What I'm seeing is throughout, and especially in around that 2017 to 19 period, where people were actually, believe it or not, it was introducing energy efficiency, whether we like it or not, it actually introduced energy efficiency from the point of view people were optimizing their usage of biomass and then actually using fossil fuels for ends that maybe weren't as desirable. But again, that was all cost driven, because again, the price of pellets actually rose in around the same period, and that had a major impact. And it's no different from heating your own home. Whenever the price of oil or kerosene goes through the roof, you do become a wee bit more frugal, and you start to become a wee bit more energy efficient. And I think this closure model should bolster that.
Okay, I think it'd be useful to get that details on that.
No problem at all.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank
Thank
you, John.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of the questions have been asked. I suppose probably don't have to go into the detail of the history of the scheme and why we're here today and the experience that you guys have been through as organisations and your membership. I look at this now as very much balancing of safeguards. That's how I view this entire process now. It's ensuring that we can safeguard the genuine participants of the scheme and also safeguard the taxpayer from abuse. And I think that if we adopt it from a first principle with that in mind, I think there is a process, a way forward here that everybody can buy into. So I want to just first of all talk about the bill. So too broad in scope was mentioned by yourself, Alan. The Chair made a suggestion about obviously draft affirmative resolution, which would mean that any change would ultimately have to come to the Assembly for vote. Is it your fear that you don't trust the department, given your previous experience with them on this, that this rate could change and therefore put your members at an economic disadvantage, or what's the concern?
Well, phrase "fool me once" comes to mind.
Okay.
Simply put, we would actually go further. We would say that in the case of a change in tariff levels or the length of the annual payments, in that they're to run out to the original duration of the scheme, if either of them two things were proposed to change, that it would actually go to public consultation first and then come to the committee.
So clerk can keep me right, but with draft affirmative resolution in any two of the circumstances that has been mentioned, there would be a formal vote in the Assembly via draft affirmative resolution. You're saying that that in itself would not satisfy you. You think this bill could be made stronger by adding before that process a consultation exercise?
Specifically in them two scenarios.
Okay, right, that's just useful to know. Next part of the safeguarding, bearing in mind, the first principle that I talked about, and that's safeguards for inspections. So do you want to talk me through how you see you mentioned going from Ofgem to the department, how that safeguards the genuine participants, but also in having, and this has been mentioned, so I wanted to mention it here today, so participants will be notified in advance if selected for inspection. Do you want to clarify how you believe that also gives an adequate safeguard for the Northern Ireland taxpayer, that a potential system could not be abused or altered or changed in such a way as to produce a false result?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I say, as we said earlier in terms of our response, it was about beefing up those protections and those levels of inspections. The idea, to specifically address your question around a completely ad hoc, just calling in, it can be difficult in a farming context. There can be biosecurity issues, poultry housing where a lot of these are and stuff. So there's nothing anybody's going to do in a 24-hour period which is going to change what they've been doing. So I suppose if we were looking at that issue very specifically, we would be, we are in favour of more inspections. But I think just to make sure there's even somebody there, that nobody's wasting their time and protect biosecurity reasons, a acceptable amount of notice would be a good way forward.
I asked that question purely because I know that has been a point that has been speculated upon. I think the information we received from the department at the time would be exactly what you've said, that there could be physically no change that could not be detected in such a short period of time to manipulate the result. I'm right in saying that. I just want to give you an opportunity to
Certainly we would take as association a position that on the whole, for the, certainly an average standard inspection should be notice based.
Okay. Adding to that, I think, Alan, you'd mentioned, is it a hybrid model that you would look to, which would be optimal, such as desktop and physical? Is there a balance to be got there to ensure then that we're meeting that requirement, but yet allowing for a bit of ingenuity in terms of costs associated with physical inspection?
I'll probably refer to Denzil on this.
As far as I think the hybrid approach would be very, very good. And again, a lot of this is, I suppose, if we take it as of today, if there's no reason why Ofgem can't send out any of the participants a letter to say that we are inspecting you. Now, whether that's in 24 hours or whether that's in 1 week, we are coming to visit your site. The only thing that really Ofgem have at the moment, they have all their application installation data, but the only thing that they really can confirm when they arrive on site is there's a schematic, and there's usually either it's known as an independent metering report, and those two documents basically document everything that is going on that site. Now, there'll be no reason on the new model why that's not adopted. Those are two very straightforward pieces of information. Again, from the inspection point of view, in the new model, the inspector would want to go out to see, is this exactly the same as it was when it transitioned? So again, there has to be some form of consistency to say, well, listen, this is what you have transitioned into the new scheme. So that needs confirmed that is still there, that you haven't done any dramatic changes or you've added anything that shouldn't be there. And I suppose the other aspect is, has it been using the correct amount of fuel? And the only way that I see to really safeguard it without any doubt whatsoever is you provide your invoices for your fuel and you provide your proof of payment that you have paid for the fuel. Now, if somebody wants to go a step to try and fraudulently, do something about that, this is not the scheme. They're in a different game. So I think with those safeguards there, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for somebody to not want somebody to arrive on their site.
So just to set this in context, in the business that I'm a director of outside of Ronnie, we supply biomass fuel into the Republic, and it wouldn't be the first occasion that SEAI has rang our office up and asked us, invoice 10,056, what can you tell us about that? Just spot checking the invoices that they're receiving at the other side. So, we have absolutely no issue telling them who that invoice was to, the amount was on it, the amount of fuel that was delivered. So it's not happening with every invoice. It might happen with 1 in 100 where it's actually going back to the supplier, but that's just to compare what's happening in the Republic as a safeguard.
I want to move on to obviously payments annually, and if everything goes according to plan, they will end in 2036. So I want to talk about the costs associated with repair and upkeep of such facilities, particularly in the later stages of life, and also based on tiers what its usage will be. Are you adequately, or are you satisfied that the tier rate takes into account the costs associated? Because I know that was a concern previously, that essentially running at loss because of the costs associated with upkeep. Have we got the balance right?
Well, I suppose I can answer from a practical and an experience point of view. I would say yes, but again, that boils back down to a lot of the participants that I do a lot of work for. The people who have looked after their boilers and maintained their boilers have been consistently paying annually, regardless of what the tariff cuts and whatever the price of pellets or the fuel. They have been maintaining their equipment. This new scheme, there won't be any difference. They'll continue to maintain their equipment. The people who haven't maintained their equipment probably aren't going to be transitioning into this new scheme because there's so much investment and so much money to be spent to get their equipment back up to speed. And even from a point of view of if it was potentially that they could sell their accreditation or do a re-ownership, it's not an attractive prospect to have to go in and replace the components. The components and spares for the renewable or for biomass boilers in particular can be extortionate at times, and that.
You wouldn't have any form of breakdown about how many people would fall into that category where their boilers are not going to be functional.
I wouldn't have that statistic now. Again, majority of people are that.
We're talking a minority though of
it would be a minority, and again, to be honest with you, some of them have probably changed business or they've changed industry, and they're probably they're not really going to be viable for this transition.
Just on a side note, just where we were talking about the fuel supply and the checks and stuff. So, us is with the schemes in GB and ROI, there is allowances for those who actually grow their own fuel, that they can sign a declaration towards that there. So just to put that point on.
Last point from me, and again, we always heard from the department, we want to strike the fair balance between the genuine participant and the ratepayer. And time again, that was proved to be wrong. The balance wasn't right. And I think that's something that has really struck me in all of this, particularly in the proposed tariff rates. Now, you guys have been at the point of debating that, arguing that, legally challenging that for some time. We now have Professor Rooney's version. Do you think we've got the fair balance?
I maybe start on that one. I think what I'll reference to answer that is we had a tariff uplift proposed just over a year ago, and we jointly rejected that. Now, we took that to our membership and said, what do you think? And I think there was a little bit of surprise from DFE side that they rejected that because they couldn't understand why would you reject an uplift. But the reality of it was it wasn't actually fair or reflective of some of the things you've talked about in terms of maintenance costs and everything else. So whenever they came back now with what's been proposed and the figure that has now come into place just this week, whenever we present that to our membership, they said we'll accept that. Now, that's not to say they were content. I think it was the word we used earlier. It's not to say that they couldn't have made an argument for it needing to be a little bit higher. I think they could have and made a very legitimate argument for that. But there was recognition that this will allow us to move on, in terms of this, to an extent, put it behind us, to an extent, get on with doing what they want to do, which is in our case mainly in terms of their broiler production. So yeah, it's okay. We're content. We'll move. Previous wasn't, and we rejected it. This time we've accepted it, and hopefully that allows us, like we say, all to move on.
So the association welcomes the banding level or the tariff level, in the sense that it's a move back towards the position that was had in 2017 to 19. we regard the 2019 Westminster legislation as being deeply flawed and a fundamental error. So to answer the question, is it where we were at in 2017 to 19? No, but it's a lot closer than we have been for the last 5 years. In particular, the upper medium band, the 199 kilowatts, has somewhat to go. In our consultation responses, we have asked that be further reviewed, and suggesting a fair balance to taxpayers and participants.
Okay.
I suppose I take more of a holistic view, and probably from an energy point of view. I suppose what I hope to see from the likes of this closure model and this transition is that this will help bolster the department's key energy strategies, which again we're hoping to improve energy efficiency. We're hoping to reduce carbon emissions, and also probably most importantly we're trying to improve the green economy, and that's again a major impact here, and which I've personally seen a demise of the biomass industry, and a lot of companies out of business, a lot of people that used to work on heat meters that are now gone or in a different industry, a lot of technicians. And again, what I would hate to see is, like a lot of our trades that we have nowadays, that trade will eventually die out, and we won't have anybody to work on biomass boilers, and we can have all this scheme. So I think the balance is fair, and I think it's going to help grow that green economy, which will have an impact on the likes of logistic companies, or industries like the likes of food suppliers, my part. And not only that, I suppose we're very much focused, and I suppose I'm very heavily involved with poultry, but I'm also heavily involved in the hotelier industry. And again, I see such benefits in the hotel industry in the Republic of Ireland compared to our own area in County Fermanagh, where they are receiving their subsidies, they're growing, they're improving their facilities, they're reducing their carbon emissions, and the same hotel in County Fermanagh is struggling to pay for energy, and again, it's not helping our tourism industry or our green economy. So as I say, that's my own.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Sinead.
Thank you very much, and a lot of ground has been covered already. I suppose my colleagues all around the committee are landing in the one space. Obviously, Northern Ireland, we want and we must support the renewable generation of heat, and honour the commitments that have been made in good faith. And as Denzil has said, we needed to be balanced, and we needed to be fair, and we needed to support the green economy. So those are all things that we can land on and agree on. But I suppose most of the committee members have said, doubt does remain over how it is monitored, how it is verified, and how it can be enforced, and I'm still not totally confident that we have or could land and tick all of those boxes. I suppose I'm going to just throw, because as I say, most of the questions have been answered already, but I'm just going to throw out this in terms of have you any views on what would have been like a one-off payment rather than these ongoing payments over 10 years? Because I feel that you too have concerns about how those payments can be maintained, particularly as Jonathan alluded to at the latter end of it. So how would you feel if there was more consideration given to a one-off payment?
So I suppose, no, we haven't calculated an exact figure. There was an exact figure that was in the Grant Thornton report a few years ago. But look, it's our position is that we would not favour that model. We think it would be the death knell to the industry. It wouldn't recover from it. It would actually be a bad use of taxpayer money as well, in the sense that it would lead to a reversion of fossil fuels. So to just succinctly answer the question, we think that this is the best solution given the circumstances that is available currently. I'll just over to John.
No, I mean I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think, what you I know you're just throwing out as a possibility. It's only for discussion purposes, Sinead, but I think yes, it wouldn't represent fairness, and we've talked a lot about fairness in this discussion, and I don't think it would represent fairness in terms of the taxpayer money, and no, we would. It's not something we have advocated for.
Okay, I thought that would be your answer. But you do understand, and you've spoken about, you understand the concerns about the inspection regime in particular as suggested in the bill, and you have indicated that you would be supportive of additional efforts to bolster the proper value for money for both participants and taxpayers. And we all want to get to that space that everybody is comfortable and I don't think that we are landed there, as I say. And what additionality could work? Because you're saying that metering is not the panacea. There are other methods, but are the other methods very heavily bureaucratic on both the participant but also those administering it? Because the administration of those efforts has gone up, the cost of it has gone up substantially, and I'm just wondering, value for money still remains part and parcel of what we want to do.
I can probably start on that question, but currently, actually, and Jonathan had alluded to the maintenance costs and the upkeep of that. There is actually also an administration cost associated paying the likes of ourselves to maintain systems and maintain meter readings and do amendments and do various relocation, re-ownerships, etc. So a lot of the participants who probably have never included it in their evidence provided to DFE. A lot of them have been paying administration and consultancy services to actually maintain their systems, to keep in the scheme. And I see this new scheme and the new transition to the closure model scheme, I don't see that any different, because again, that's being paid by the participant from obviously the subsidy. But again, it's the proper due diligence. There's no reason why this should be a very expensive administration and bureaucratic process. I think with the proper setup of whatever's required for the due diligence, whether that includes templates or whether it includes employing engineers to sign aspects off. And again, I refer back to Ofgem. A lot of Ofgem's work is actually just ticking the boxes of the information that we send them. So all the evidence is there, and basically they're facilitating an approval of the evidence that has been provided by the customer, by the participant, or by the qualified engineer. So as I say, I wouldn't have any concerns about a new process and being heavily bureaucratic. I think once it's set up and it's properly transitioned and you have the paperwork in place, I think inspections should be relatively straightforward. And again, it could come to the point where if you have 8 boilers on site, then you would be probably in the category of you would get one inspection per annum. If you only have one biomass boiler, I think a desktop once a year and maybe once every 3 years and on site or once every 4 years. So I think it could be weighted to how many installations you are involved with or how many you have on site. So I say I don't see that being a major bureaucratic or administration nightmare.
So 2 things. Firstly, at the moment, participants are required to keep their fuel records and they're required to keep their maintenance records. So a move to, for example, maybe an annual submission of a selection or potentially all of them, I don't think is going to, at the point of self-declaration annually, is going to be a similar administrative burden to filing four separate meter readings. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. That allows the department to then, take a risk-based approach. They're getting data in annually, and I suppose just to clarify, the thinking, and it is only thinking on the physical inspections. If you did take a clerk of works approach where somebody is, I'm not going to say popping in, but coming to take a look, is the boiler there? What's it being used for? What's our observations on site, and maybe focuses less on the paperwork. I think even with 24-hour notice, to actually have somebody to come out to take a look at the physicality is fine, but to actually then put the burden on the participants to have all their paperwork in order with 24 hours notice is unduly lenient. That can be done in an organised, orderly, annual fashion, similar to a VAT return, for example. So another key thing here is communication between the department and participants and associations, because one of the things that fell apart in 2016 was that the department stopped talking to participants and organisations. Now, we all understand the reasons why, but we have had more communications with the department in the last 12 months than we've had the decade previously. And I think there is something to be said for private sector input into all of this.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Sinead. I'm going to move on then to Diana.
Thank you for coming before the committee this morning. I think the sensitivities remain. It's the public perception, as I keep saying, of the successor to the RHI, and it is important to move towards that end point. Now, Jonathan and Sinead have covered quite a lot of what I was thinking, of asking, but a couple of minor points in your presentation really is about, and I was trying to understand where the department is unhappy about funding installations that have been relocated. How many do you think, in your estimate, would fall into the category of relocation?
Ask Denzil deals with the majority, and I'll refer to him.
There's again, I wouldn't have the statistics, but again, there seems to be a lot of boilers out there that I think there was the talk of there's 600 boilers out not in contact with Ofgem, and they believe that these 600 boilers are gone, or they're just gone. What it probably is the case now, and I've probably dealt with in the past couple of months, and probably 150 to 200 of those boilers, that people have just, administration wise, they have just let the thing fall apart. They haven't been inputting their readings, and we've had situations where people have died and that have looked after the meter readings, and they've never passed that on, and nobody has thought, well, we used to submit. There also seems to be a lack of communication maybe from Ofgem, whether a lot of times they're not sending out reminder emails anymore, or maybe they're going to emails that aren't being reviewed on a regular basis. So I suppose it's
Is that a big enough cohort that really needs to be presented to the Department of the Economy for a solution?
Well, I think the main thing from that I personally see is there's a lot of potential boilers there that have accreditation, that if they fall into this de minimis, or actually they leave the scheme, there's potential there for renewable heat that has just been decimated. Now, a lot of those boilers will be scrap value, and they have the opportunity to go to another business. For instance, a poultry business that maybe has changed industry or gone to eggs or whatever, and has less heat requirement, that particular boiler there could actually go to a care home, or could go to a hotel to actually displace fossil fuels, which would be a big bonus, especially from the energy strategy. And the process of doing that is a lot more straightforward than replacing a heat meter, believe it or not. So there's an opportunity there. We have all these accredited boilers. We should be utilising them in other areas. Now, it's not to say that potentially that boiler just goes in and it just fits in. Again, we want to make sure that the business that it's going to has an eligible heat use, and it is displacing fossil fuels. So it is using fossil fuels at the moment, not just a case of you're going to replace another biomass boiler with an accredited biomass boiler. So I think with the proper due diligence I think that would be a very straightforward process.
So something just can't be ruled out, that there are different uses,
There's
different
different
environments
uses,
they can be
yeah.
used. And of course, thank you for that. And the other issue I wanted to point to talk to you about is really, you mentioned an appeals process where you thought, again, what's the indication there? How many biomass operators would feel that their tariff or they would challenge that between 17 and 19?
Well, if we can just on the case of the appeals process, I'll maybe defer just to John on that. Do you have more knowledge of it?
It's a little bit hard to know how many there would be. There will be some for sure. There will be circumstances why in that reference period they didn't have a heat requirement. There could have been all sorts of family events. We don't, but there will be some. Again, experience would let us know that. I suppose one of the things we have suggested again is that that we have a proper appeals process set up. So we would suggest to DFE that they look at sort of that DERA Stage 2 model that they have, where it's an independent appeals panel will sit on each case and look at the evidence presented to it and then give a decision recommendation back to DFE. I think that model has worked fairly well for the agriculture sector, and I think would work in this instance, because very hard to know how many. I think inevitably there will be some. And just to go back to the previous question too, and Denzil mentioned it anyway, one of the things we've said, it is really important that if there is going to be relocation, that the relocation site is also inspected to make sure there is a genuine heat requirement on that site. Is something that we have added in the consultation. I think, Rana, you put in as well. So.
Yeah, so our consultation response was independent but almost identical. So our position on relocation is allow but control. If there is a common, and let's actually use a bit of common sense about this, if there is a relocation that is proposed that makes common sense, that's going to go into somewhere that is using 10, 15,000 litres a year of heating oil or gas or LPG, let's do that. But if it doesn't make sense, let's say no, just forget about it. So what we're saying is let's regulate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's all we have at this stage for you. Can I thank you for freely giving of your time to help inform the committee's deliberation on the bill. As I say, this is a very short bill in terms of a two-clause bill, but ultimately it'll be the regulations that'll be a matter of most public interest and scrutiny, so it's something that we will need to continue to watch and monitor, and we may bring you back at a further stage. So thank you very much for that at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Peter.
So in terms of actions, members, are we consent that I'll contact RAISE and just find out more information about the SEAI model in use in the Republic of Ireland. Also, if members are content for me to contact the department and ask if they can see the responses to the consultation on the regulations.
Yep.
Okay, if that's agreed, members.
Great. Okay. Moving to item 8, members' correspondence. Are members content to dispose of as indicated in the index?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Apart from number 11, Chairperson, which is there's tabled correspondence where the Minister is offering an informal brief to the Chairperson on the security of supply issue.
Are members content that I meet the Minister, and obviously a note will be provided to the committee?
Yep.
Okay. Forward work plan, Peter?
Nothing to say, members. That just is what it is. If members have any comments.
Members agreed? Great. Any other business at this stage, members? If not, can I thank everyone for their attendance today, and the next meeting will begin at 10 a.m. next Wednesday, the 10th of December, here in room 30. Thank you very much. The committee will now adjourn.
Committee room 30. Sound. 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 Committee Room 30, sound.